It's episode 51 of the PoddyC. This week, I don't know. Is this going to be a bad intro for the video? Because
there's nothing this week.
The whole bit this week is Max is bored as hell. That's going to be our. Wait, can we say hell in the first 30 seconds of YouTube video? Frank, research that and bleep it out.
Bored as heck.
I think it's like any part.
Like
Are we in the episode right now?
Yeah, we're moving in the episode for a solid 25 seconds.
No. There's like a couple things on YouTube you can like never say, and it's like bad for the video, I think. But I don't know if any of them are curse words.
But then there's like curse words in the first 30 seconds is bad. Also, that's like like the first 30 seconds are.
Oh, I guess that makes. But is that purely because YouTube can only like scan the first minute because there's just like hundreds of millions of whatever.
It's because like that's close to where the advertisement was, and the advertisers don't want to be like.
But don't advertisements happen all the way through the video?
Yeah, ignore that part. That's the reason.
All right, cool.
Yeah, it's also just like that's where you get the highest retention, right? Viewers.
Yeah, that's when the parents are watching to make sure that it's okay before leaving little Timmy with the iPad in the corner to watch the video.
Exactly.
Yeah. This week, I got the Harbinger of the Gilded achievement. I got all 639. So it took a little bit of work.
Before we talk about WoW stuff, what did you guys do for Thanksgiving today?
Oh,
you guys were
went to visit my parents. We had food, and then I drove back so we could record the PoddyC. Because I'm high passion and committed to the podcast.
Oh, were you not going to do that?
No, I probably was anyways. Either way.
You were totally gonna pass that off like you're just so.
I want the bonus points.
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
Points.
Did you do anything, Dork?
Same thing.
Hey, with your family, I'm away from my family. Yeah. My sister's in Miami. My parents are in Louisville, Kentucky, and we had a Thanksgiving FaceTime today for like an hour or so. I've never done a group FaceTime before, but like we were just all four of us.
So you're like a VTuber for a day.
Yeah, I was kind of like a VTuber.
That's the same thing.
Hang on, how's it like a VTuber? It was his face. It's not like he had a VTuber.
Well, yeah, but
right?
you're not a favorite person,
This is like a streamer, which he already is.
Yeah, man.
What are
you cooking up right now?
Well, it's a live event,
Okay. Oh, like the VTuber concert you showed us a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
More like when you're at BlizzCon or something with a VTuber.
Yeah. I don't know. It was kind of an uneventful Thanksgiving for me. It was like this is like the second, I think, major holiday where I've just been like alone in my house and my family's like across the country and I'm not in a relationship, and it's just like I'm alone. I'm gonna be alone forever. I had a pretty good day. I like went and played some hockey and then talked to my family and stuff, but I was definitely, except for the outside of that, the rest of the day where I was bored as fuck. And we can talk about that later, where I just cannot. I'm just like, I need a fucking game to go hard in right now, and I can't find it. I'm in an existential game hole at the moment.
Dude, I've been there before. I was there like 4 months ago, I want to say, and then also like a year ago, where you just are like, you've got nothing else going on for a bit. You want to be playing a game. None of them are doing it for you. For me, it's like you can look at my Steam library, and there's just some months where I tried like 40 games to just see if one of them will stick, so that I get into it, and they're just all like 20 minutes in, and then nope, that's not it. And then it's like, oh my god, I found one, and then sink 2 weeks into it and pogging out.
Yeah, I need to do that. I'm trying to remember the last time, and just for anyone listening, this isn't like this time in WoW particularly it's really bad. This is actually This is a ritual every season for me. We do the season for a little bit, it's fun, and then we move on and do some other things. And for this time, there's not like a game I want to play with my friends or anything. There's not like a single player game I'm diving into. I resorted to getting like, none of them I'm not like spending any money in them, but I have like 6 idle games on my phone, which are just like really shitty, like idle, build your own airport and build your own university or whatever. And that's like I've just found these stupid ways to take up like an hour of my day because there's just fucking nothing going on. So yeah, that's what's going on with me, man. But Not streaming a lot either. Just kind of. Although I think that's like healthy. I think it's good to take time off of streaming, and there is no better time to do that than right now. Actually, this feels kind of similar to like when Classic came out. Like did you guys play You guys both probably played Classic when it came out, maybe.
I didn't play Vanilla Classic. I played TBC Classic when it came out for like 2 weeks, and then
Dorki, were you a Classic enjoyer?
I played for a little bit.
Was that before you started streaming?
Yeah, this was before I started streaming. This
I
was
didn't
actually
even think about that.
This was actually the first time Growl quit on us. He full-time quit. I actually played for a little bit too. I was playing with some friends to like 20-something-ish, maybe like close to 30, and then I got bored and quit. But that's also when I re-rolled to healer for our M+ group that owned.
Okay, so you didn't experience the like, man, if you were a WoW retail streamer in Sanctum of Domination, I was gonna say Season of Discovery because they have the same thing. Dranos, did you have that experience at all? Were you like full-time streaming around when Classic came out at all? I know you've always kind of been part-time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so Classic launched at the very end of Azshara Prague for me, so I streamed that still, and it's like it was just like, you know,
I mean, it fell off the face of the earth. Yeah, it was crazy. Like if your viewership was 2K before Classic came out, and it would have been 2K as if nothing happened 4 months after Classic came out, it would have been like 500.
Yeah.
For that entirety of those 4 months. This right now actually feels like, streaming wise, not maybe like population wise within the games, but streaming wise, it feels the same. There's nothing really to pay attention to in retail at the moment, and Classic like has some content going on. So it's definitely, if there's a time to take some time off streaming, it's right now for sure.
Yeah,
the game is much more cyclical now than before. Like,
it's tough because December is like
formula.
December is the advertiser month, right? Like that's the month to get to do this. If you're trying to like, if you have to pick a month to stream and then or make videos or whatever, and 12 months or 11 months not to, like December is the one to do. But that is not lining up nicely with WoW. Like WoW retail.
It's actually horrible. In fact, usually we've had like races in November and December, and that is amazing. In fact, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but like I went to like, did I say this on my stream? I went to like a little powwow at TL, and they had all the like executives there, and like one of them was talking to me about how the race did. Does that sound familiar at all?
Not to me.
I remember you relaying one anecdote from that, but I don't remember.
I'm gonna slam it. Hopefully, if you guys have heard this on podcast, you know what? Frank will know, and he'll just cut it out, and we'll be in the future, and you won't have heard any of this. But
yeah, Frank is great at knowing stuff we've already said before, like that time he gave us the Patreon question.
The exact same Patreon question twice. Okay, so I was like ready to like, I don't know, like kind of big step through there. We just won, and like like Team Liquid really cares about the Race to World first stream doing well on Team Liquid's side. Like, they've unironically had conversations before with me where they were like, how can we get viewers off of your channel and on to ours? Which is a weird thing to think about, but like those conversations have been had. So that tells you that it's really important to them. And this time, Team Liquid got crazy good viewership. So we won. The thing that they really needed to happen happened, and I was like, all right, this is going to be great. Everyone's going to be happy, and I'm going to be so important, and I'm going to say hi to people and all that stuff. And then like I kind of just brought up the race doing well, because I just assumed it did, and they're like, oh yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. And I was like, what the, like, that's crazy. Like we got so many more viewers. They're not talking about the fact that we won. Like, obviously they're happy we won. They're just talking like the business side of it. And literally the only thing that made it not great was the fact that it was not in a great advertising month. Like, most of the money you make during the race is from advertising. It's just people watching ads on Twitch streams. That's it. That's all the income, basically. Not really, but like that's what helps make ends meet. And you doing an event in like December or like the end of November versus pretty much any other month, there's a few summer months that are good. It's just like 3x what it would be. Not, I don't even know if it's actually 3x, but it's like a ton. And that's like how insane it is. So yeah, right now as a WoW streamer, when you want to be going hard, but I don't know. I don't know what I would say. Maybe I can get into some variety stuff, but I just the amount of days a week I can turn on my stream and yap about World of Warcraft and actually have non-repetitive, not bad content is not a lot. Because unless like maybe PTR, some stuff like that, but
Yeah, I have been looking at it a bit as well because it's like, I should try and stream some stuff. But I mean, I think I can stream if I stream like my weekly keys and just talk to chat. I think I'll be okay. I just basically haven't streamed in a month though, so I don't know. I'm kind of
because I'm debating PoE, right?
Yeah, I'm debating doing some PoE content, but the problem is I don't really play PoE in a particularly interesting way. Usually, like people watch those games for like hardcore or like turbo blasters, and like I kind of just vibe out, play the game sort of somewhat slowly.
Sounds almost like an M+ stream.
Yeah, like I think I can
M+
do,
streams are more interesting. I feel like because like it's not just there's content happening. Like there is some stakes. There's depleting and there's completing a key, right? And like, but with PoE, it's kind of that's all in flux,
but
kind
PoE
of fluid.
It's launching without a large information ecosystem, which does somewhat level the playing field for me to like I feel like I could actually do a pretty good job of generating a decent build, understanding the game mechanics better, like ahead of the curve compared to other people, and like maybe becoming like a place that people can go to like ask questions and stuff like that. That's something that, because I kind of am in that space in WoW. Like when I turn on stream in WoW, a lot of my viewership over the years have been people that are like coming to ask a question about game mechanics.
Yeah, you're the guide guy.
Yeah, like there's a decent chance that I'm gonna know the answer to like I'm having this problem on this raid boss, or this problem in this dungeon, or this problem with this spec, and like how do I fix it? And I think in PoE there's a large established set of people that are pretty good at that in PoE 1, but PoE 2 I think maybe is a bit of a reset on that. So I could try and kind of do something like that. Or I could just do kind of I was thinking of doing just like a let's play Path of Exile 2 and just not streaming it, but ripping a recording and do it straight to YouTube.
Oh,
and,
interesting. Yeah, that's like, really interesting. Yeah, I actually
do it like an old 2010 Minecraft Let's Play.
I can tell you that streaming games like that sometimes can actually like reduce your enjoyment of a bit because you're like, I don't know, like if you were to play, like for me, I haven't played a lot of PoE, but if I'm going to play Diablo for 8 hours, I could like do that off stream and I'd have something on my second monitor and I'd be like kind of like balancing that out and having fun. And if I was streaming it, like 6 hours in, I would be absolutely drained. And then I would maybe turn it off and play it a little more, but it's like a totally different thing. So like, yeah, doing the Let's Play maybe would be... Also, like, some of those games are just, like, harder to stream. I don't know. Like, they're...
Yeah.
You don't want to be engaged with chat all the time. It's kind of a game you just kind of want to grind it out,
Yeah, so, like, depending on how I formatted that... Like, because I don't know, I feel like I get this more than... Because people ask me why I don't, like, turn on my stream as much. Because I'm still playing WoW, right? And, like, there are a lot of WoW streamers I know that will not play WoW if their stream's not turned on. Because just, like, why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you just turn on stream if you're going to be in WoW anyways? But like for me, even in WoW and especially in other games, it's a different experience. Like the stream is on and I have to be on and I have to be, talking to chat, and I could just like, I can't just turn on stream and then do what I would normally do. Cause that's like, I don't know. I don't want to put out a bad product. I don't, it doesn't feel natural to me. If I know the camera's on, it's different. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's definitely a good idea. Like the whole, I think pretty much any time as a streamer is whenever you're not like having fun or like you don't think your stream is good, I think it is better for it to be off. I don't think quantity is good in the streaming game. I think you always want to have a good stream more than be online a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot. Because, like people were saying like, oh, like, why haven't you been streaming keys or whatever? And it's like, man, if I'm just like literally just vibing or just doing like weeklies or whatever, I don't want to bother streaming it, like I'm just trying to play the game. And I think a lot of people who don't stream or like don't understand that, they don't like actually see it because they just see it as like, oh, you're just playing the game, like just turn your stream on.
Yeah, because a lot of people just assume that's what's true. I don't think a lot of people who've thought about it a lot or really have had jobs, I think, realize that it's not like that. It's more just like, if you've just always been gaming, you're like, man, it'd be awesome if I could just turn my stream on and people watched it. But that's like also never what it is. Speaking of PoE, I had a friend reach out to me that I played a lot of D4 with they were like, dude, should we like play PoE 2 together? Is that something you do? Is that like a thing in PoE? Can you play with people and that makes sense?
Yeah. You can. It's in PoE 1, it was a little bit kind of like the meta for being as powerful as you could was to make like a 6-player group, and you do like 1 carry and basically 5 supports, kind of. And then PoE 2, it looks like it's not going to be quite as. At least that is unsolved at the start, so you can just kind of play 2 builds that have good synergies with each other, or 4 builds that, do different, like only one of you is going to freeze and only one of you is going to shock or whatever, and do something cool like that, or just 4 good builds and play together. It definitely works. I think it's a little bit less like naturally good at that than Diablo, because unlike Diablo, in PoE there's a lot more difference in speed between different people in a group. Usually, like it's pretty hard the fastest person and the slowest person are usually a lot farther apart than in D4, where there's just kind of, it's easy to sort of
in
all
D4 dude, I have not played D4 recently where the power level has not been majorly far apart like the whole time. I think it's just an ARPG thing, but you're saying it's worse. You're saying it's just worse in PoE, probably.
I think in PoE, at least in PoE 1, it's like it's an issue to the point where I did a couple leagues ago in PoE. I did a 6-person league start, and we basically like were planning out how we were going to level up through the game, and the people that were more experienced were like doing all these actual objectives and stuff, and the other people were kind of just farming and then teleporting to them to get the completion for the quests and stuff. I don't know. I think it's fun though. I think it would be, especially given that nobody's
we're both
fast
idiots
right now. Yeah,
we both know
you're both
absolutely
idiots.
nothing. So I feel like we'd learn more by having someone there.
I think it'd be fun. Yeah.
And maybe it'd be more fun too. Who knows?
I'm thinking of also, you can kind of like do like you do it, and you can like drop in, drop out to some extent. Although, there's a campaign to progress, so you need to, if one of you gets ahead on that, then they'd have to wait, or you just would stop playing together. But once you're into endgame, you could definitely like kind of play asynchronously, and then just whenever you're both on, do stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That'll probably be something I stream a little bit, I think. But, all right. So what we're gonna get into a little bit, I think we're gonna do a little tier list of some WoW patches.
Yeah, this has been our plan all along this episode.
Mm-hmm. But
we should first talk about the lever thing. That was a pretty big thing this week.
I was fascinated on that for 2 reasons, but I want to hear your all's takes first. One of them is like, I'm super interested in hearing if you guys have the same opinion as me.
Okay, yeah. So basically,
can you pull it up? Actually,
yeah, I'm looking for it right now. So they said, yeah, we banned some M+ lever idiots. Yeah, I found it. Okay, actions
I have
taken.
a feeling they didn't actually do anything. It's just a PR statement. It's literally there to just be like, guys, quit being fucking idiots.
I'm sure they banned some people, but I think when we read the exact text for maybe the people who are listening, at least the first like half of it, I don't think there's many people this would even apply to, especially what they say after the comma. Can you read it, Dratnos? What Blizzard said?
Today, we issued gameplay suspensions to players who intentionally left Mythic Plus groups a great many times in The War Within Season 1. The sort of behavior we actioned was either without regard for the experience of their fellow players, or in some cases, even deliberately intending to harm others' experiences.
Okay, there, you can stop there. How often do you think the end of that paragraph happens? Specifically, or in some cases, even deliberately intending to harm others' experiences. Almost as if you joined the group with zero intention of completing it. All you want to do is grief those 4 people. How often do you guys think that happens?
I've seen it once, and it wasn't targeted it wasn't like randomly targeted, it was specifically targeted. And the person was like, you declined me on my alt, so I logged into my main,
this happened
signed
to my
up
stream.
to this group, and then, left the... like.
This is exactly what someone in my stream said they did. They were like, I'll admit it, I've done this before, and they literally cited exactly what you just said.
So maybe it's the same person, or maybe multiple people are doing this. It's like
multiple people.
Yeah, I suspect that realistically, it's like you probably, in order to get caught in this ban wave, had to have been doing this and like admitted it in game chat.
But also
Or-
multiple times. They said they literally, exact words, a great many times. Right?
Yeah.
That is not doing that once.
Well, yeah, so I suspect that it's like, it's going to depend on, I imagine like if you did type that kind of stuff or like admit that you were deliberate, like you were griefing instead of just like leaving, you were probably more likely to get hit by this. And then like, again, a great many times. Yeah. It's like, this is not somebody who's just left a group a couple of times, right? And again, like they said, they issued suspensions. It didn't say how many, right? Like they could have issued hundreds of suspensions to people, to like the 100 most egregious people.
I think that's likely.
And that's like in the scheme of things, that's a drop in the bucket, right? But like,
I also think that banning, they've never even really talked about this. So I think the actual banning of people is less relevant as a deterrent to doing this than actually posting that you are willing to ban about it in the first place. So I think the post of this happening is if there's ever going to stop someone, except for what was said after that comma. By the way, even if someone declines your main or your alt, so you log on your main, get in and brick their key, that's still like really fucking weird behavior.
Yes.
that is.
I have no problem with like anybody who did that even once. I wouldn't have a problem with them catching a 3-day or something.
Yeah, that's fucking insane. Like,
do it multiple times, catch a month.
I didn't get what I want. I'm gonna ruin your day. That's like, are you 10? Like, that's insane. And then here's what I think happens. Okay, so the sort of behavior we action was either without, and I want you guys to let me know, especially people in the comments, because like, I don't play WoW a lot at all. I'm around WoW. I've played WoW for a very long time. I don't play it a lot currently. Dratnos plays it more than I do. Dorki does Mythic Plus all the time, but at a higher level. So like, let us know if we're off base here for sure. But like, when I hear this sort of behavior we action was either without regard for the experience of their fellow players, that reminds me of a player that, and you guys have all seen these people, and I don't think they're intentionally griefing their group. They're making an educated decision on whether the next 40 minutes are going to be a waste of their time. And usually what happens is you wipe on the very first pull. That your dungeon at that point is not dead. And the person leaving probably doesn't think it's dead. They probably think that this group sucks and they have no chance of timing this, which is the only point of me doing it, and they leave. And that, if you do that all the time, that probably is someone that would get caught in this ban. But I think that happens, and that's logical. There's a reason that happens. And the second part where it's like even deliberately intending to harm other experiences, my take is, and I want to know if you guys agree with this, people in the comments agree with it, I think 9 out of 10 times it's what I just described, and like maybe 1 out of 10 or even less, it's the like literal psycho decision to like intentionally grief someone's key that you don't know. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
I think that sounds fair. And I think, so the thing is, by them doing this only to the people who did this like a great many times, this now changes the logic as well, right? Now, if you're a player who goes into a key, right? Like this is them saying this, like, they get a couple of the most egregious offenders, and then now it's like okay, here's the new rule in the land, right? Which is now if you wipe on the first pull, obviously you can leave a dungeon from time to time, but if you do a day of 10 keys and 6 of them you leave on the first pull, like that may have been logical behavior like you described before, obviously kind of like shitty. And
no, this alters the logic. Absolutely.
But now you're somebody, if you're
There's
like,
no rule
I
against
shouldn't do this, right? Like I should leave only the most bricked keys, the keys where somebody is, flaming, or the keys where like I should not use this I should do this less often, right? If you're somebody who ever leaves Mythic Plus groups, you should do it less often, right? If you are wanting to not get banned. And I think that's great. And I think that Blizzard can ratchet this up now and ban people, next month. They can look back at people between now and then and be like, okay, we're doing this more.
Side
more
note on
aggressively.
that, I bet we don't see another post involving group leavers potentially ever. And I would bet not within years. I think this
so. That's
probably
the Blizzard precedent. That's the problem with Blizzard historically, is that they're like, yep, here's our new rule. We don't want you to cheat in the Race to World First or leave Mythic Plus groups or whatever anymore. And then we're taking some actions against this, and everybody's like, oh, thank goodness. This is a problem. We're glad you fixed it. And then the next time it happens, crickets. Nothing happens. And everybody's like, okay, I guess now I'm supposed to still do this? I don't know the game theory on this. Am I supposed, what's the % chance I'm going to get in trouble if I do this versus not? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are worried about the whole getting banned, because I do think there are a lot. Like I've seen a lot of comments, and people are saying how like, oh, like why shouldn't I be able to leave if it's going to be a bricked run, right? And I think they're completely reasonable for that, but it's not a shared opinion amongst the group. And there's also a lot of people who are worried that this could be abused and people just get automated bans, which has been a pretty real thing this expansion.
Wait,
especially.
like vote kick, I guess, or
Well,
No,
no,
just
like
if Blizzard's detection is bad and it just they do
Which
a
it
too
is
aggressive
pretty
ban
bad,
wave
yeah.
and it hits a lot. But I don't know. I mean, again, the fear is that they will do that. It's not that they have currently done. Like I haven't heard
heard
anybody
anyone.
say that like I got banned unfairly by this, which is that's part of the
Well,
reason I
not
think
by
it was
this
such a small set of
specifically, but there
players.
has
that
been-
supports Dorky's theory too, that no one actually got banned. Which
Maybe,
would be,
yeah.
Which would honestly,
Yeah.
I think them banning 100 people versus them banning 0 people
The same
and
thing.
posting this has the exact same effect on the community. So they actually didn't need to ban anyone, even though they maybe should have if people were abusing it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, there have been people who have been unfairly automated bans for like other purposes, right? Other reasons, kind of like the whole
Yeah. Yeah,
crafting cartel situation.
definitely possible.
Wait, what was that? Like people got banned for being in the crafting cartel?
That was a
I
mass
never-
report. The crafting cartel would mass
Yeah, the
report
whole-
you.
Oh,
if you
yeah, okay,
had lower prices than them.
I had reversed it. I thought you were saying that they were banning the crafting cartel and they got the wrong
no.
people and banned some innocents. But no, I'm familiar with how the cartel operated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not because
those
I
are,
was
like,
in the
main
cartel.
worries.
But just I'm aware of the stories. That's all.
Yeah,
I think that
but
like so again, the fear is that Blizzard will do something that they haven't done or said they're going to do. The fear is that they'll do some aggressive, like, because again they said they had that line and this line here as well. Today we suspended players who repeatedly and recklessly disrupted Mythic Plus groups. Right? We understand that occasionally abandoning runs will happen. Players can experience unexpected real life emergencies, internet outages, or the group collectively deciding to quit the run. Right? And like,
Well, that does not happen. Usually the group collectively does not decide to quit the run. Usually it's like someone's waiting for someone to leave and then like everyone's like kind of
well,
thinking.
no, I would say it depends on what type of keys we're talking about. Because like, if
yeah.
it's- yeah,
I've
I
been
would
in
say, like,
pugs
a
where
weekly
people
key.
where you kind of collect it like the first two the first pull goes wrong twice and everybody's like
I think we've seen enough here.
yeah. And I've been in those groups where it's amicable, right? It's a nice little no fault divorce.
We tried.
More often
Yeah,
than not,
GGs.
I
Yeah.
think.
But it's oftentimes if 4 people want to quit and one person doesn't, who is like is that 4 people being M plus leavers, or is that fair
No,
game, right?
there's no way they would punish people for leaving after probably
Yeah.
the first person, and then because like I mean, if you're punishing someone for leaving after the first person leaves, like
that would be crazy. Yeah.
but also like you could still that would probably not happen to you a lot if you're the second person. Like you got banned because you were the second person to leave a group this many times. But here's why I would like to challenge Dorky's theory. Not that this matters at all, by the way, but like I do think some people were banned because I have seen people leave at the speed of light when something goes wrong on the very first pull of a dungeon. I've seen this happen
yeah.
a few times. And I would be willing to bet that those people do that all the time. Like, I don't know. Unless you're having the worst day ever and this is the 5th key in a row where you've wiped on the first pull and you're just like, I'm fucking over it. I bet that happens. But I also bet like it's just someone at their computer that's like all they care about is IO score, and like they wipe on the first pull and you're like, these people are beneath me. Leave group, right? I think that person does that fucking all the time, and I bet that kind of person probably got banned for I don't even know how long.
I mean,
probably
sometimes it's like unsalvageable.
Yeah,
It's
plus
like,
if you got banned, good news, it's the middle of the season, and unless you've got a raid night or something, you're not missing shit. So you're good.
Yeah, it's probably very few people. But sometimes like when you're wiping on the first pull, it means like you've committed bloodlust and all your cooldowns, and then like normally the first pull is a large pull, right? Like that's just how it works.
Yeah, most dungeons, yeah.
But yeah, I mean it depends on the type of keys. I think the biggest separation Blizzard needs is they need to utilize the LFG marking what
Yes.
type of group.
Oh, that would be
you're
so
doing.
good. If it was
Yeah.
like if you're in a group that's like, beat timer or whatever, you don't get penalized at all or as much for leaving after deaths. But if you're in a group that says like for completion, and then
Yeah,
you leave,
yeah.
like it's got like the League of Legends style thing where like 1 Q dodge gets you a little penalty, and 2 you're like you can't play for like an hour, and 3 you get a ban or whatever they have. Like
Yeah, I mean, there's a key level that exists somewhere above a 12 that happens in Pugs where if you lust and use all your cooldowns on the pull and wipe, the key is over. Like it's not like objective, like, or it's not subjective.
It
Like
happens
that
most
is
of the time, actually.
that is true. Like your key is, you will not time this key, right? So like at that point, it makes sense for everyone to leave again if their sole purpose is to get score and not crest, which I would assume if you're doing like, I'm just gonna make this up, like 15s or 16s, crests are a very small side benefit in your journey.
almost
right?
useless for players at that key level generally, like except for the start of the week when you're not capped.
Yeah, it's usually a collective. Let's go next whenever you're wiping in the first pull in a 12+ key.
Right, which that you're never going to get. Like, to be clear, Blizzard is not actioning that at all. There's I guess your fear is that they're accidentally going to have that in their detection, but that's the kind of thing where, like, if that happened to a high M pluser or whatever, like, we would be hearing about it, right?
Yeah, we would know. I would actually think, if not even a high M pluser, like if someone who even breaches the idea of like getting score at the end of the season, someone would have typed "I got banned" in Dorki stream chat and not been joking. Like you would have heard about that, right? Like they would have wanted to tell everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm in favor of reducing the amount of levers in keys for Pugs. Although I do empathize with people who feel held hostage in groups that are bad, and I don't know. I feel like it's just like there should be like a understanding where it's like after a couple of wipes. But the problem is if Blizzard ever said that explicitly, then those people would cause those wipes and leave, and that would be even worse. So it's one of these things where like there are any kind of systematic solution that you propose has an abuse case that just doesn't exist yet because there's not that solution.
I also was kind of fascinated when I saw this because I don't know why, but sometimes when I hear of news, I'm like, I have to see what the Wowhead comments think about this. And usually it's in like an Agent of Chaos way, like I'm about to read the worst shit ever. But in this, it was the opposite. I read this on Twitter and I saw that this was a thing and Wowhead made a post about it. And I went to go read the comments because I was sure that this was going to be like the highest approval rating post of all time. Like there's no one who would read this and be like, that's bullshit. Like I mean, you could probably read the comments.
Yeah,
I read like the first page when they first came out, but they're all like www. Did they remove comments?
No, I was on the wrong
not a
post, so I have to
post.
find the news post about it. Yeah. Okay, here, found it. 390 comments. Oh yeah,
Holy shit.
good.
Massive
W. Get 'em. W.
I mean, like,
W.
who? Think about
Yeah.
it. Who would be mad about this other than someone?
This is
who-
the same concern that Dorki has. Wait until the false positives come in, right? Like, okay, but what's the limit? When can I quit a run? If I'm pushing 13 and 14 keys, I don't want to do the whole run when it's over after the first pack.
Yeah,
So these are,
exactly.
like people share your concerns.
Completely
Dorki.
logical concerns that
Yeah.
didn't get banned, but like they're just like, I hope I never get banned for making a logical decision. And
Right.
Everyone agreed with that. And you would just hope that Blizzard bans that right, which they have banned incorrectly in the past, as we brought up. But
Yeah.
the comments are all very positive because I'm just trying to imagine like the person who's mad about that, other than the people who are not mad but are concerned for the future. The mad person, the person like, this is fucking no. Like I deserve to ruin people's keys if I so please, like that person, if they exist, like a true psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, the community in general is just like very sick and tired of people who are just leaving keys, which honestly, I feel like doesn't happen a whole lot. I mean, I've poked a lot of keys. I actually have like some stories to tell. I've had 2 situations in the past where I feel like the person definitely needed to be banned. So one of them was back in Shadowlands Season 3, I believe. I was pugging a Plague Fall with one of my healer friends, Hunte, and I think it was we were just trying to do a weekly quest or a weekly vault, and I think it was like a 22 Plague Fall. We entered. It was a Demon Hunter leader, and first thing the Demon Hunter says is, "Hey, can I get PI?" So I'm playing Bloody Care, right? I'm fucking Giga Chad. Like I am like topping the meats as a tank. One of the best times to be a Bloody K. So I'm like, I'm just fucking with him. I'm like, yeah, if you can beat me on the first boss damage, smile. And so we enter. So he's like, okay. And so we enter the key. We skip to the first boss, which is like a pretty common high key strat. I do like a pull, and then I bring like a slime onto the first boss for a big haste buff. And I'm just cranking this boss. So I'm cranking this boss. I absolutely crush him in damage. And so, like I'm getting all the PIs. And so this guy's like really fucking salty. He's like, well, where's my PI? Like, I've never, and I'm like, well, you didn't beat me in boss damage. And then he goes, yeah, well, I've never seen someone do this really weird route from some guy who lives in a mom's basement over in Antarctica. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy on about? So he just like keeps like ripping. Day. Yeah, he just like keeps like ripping it in chat, saying all sorts of shit. And he's just like literally AFK at that point, right? Like he's not even participating. And we're just trying to get our weekly done. We're just like, whatever, right? Like we're literally just 4-manning the dungeon. He harfs out and he's still talking his shit.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so, me and Hunte, we were like, oh, like we don't care. Like we can just finish this dungeon 4-man. We can still time it without you. Like we're literally on the third boss. We're about to time the key. And so he gets so upset about the fact that like we're about to time this that he just like kicks us all from the group. So we actually end up getting our group disbanded. We couldn't even complete the key. Like he could have literally gotten IO and a vault for free without having to even do anything. Like we're about to
and
boost
gear.
his ass.
It mails you gear as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you would have gotten the gear.
I will say I was trying to track
so
where this was gonna go, and I did not. And you said group leader at the beginning, but that is sinister shit. Fucking disbanding group, not even leaving group, disbanding.
And yeah, like he's literally just like talking shit in chat the entire time while we're just 4-manning the dungeon. Like we don't care. Like bro, like we'll still time the dungeon. We're just trying to get our key in. And he literally just like disbands the group on us so that we
remember
can't
his name
actually complete it. No, I don't remember. It's been.
All right, I hope you got banned, you little bitch.
Yeah, you little bitch.
I bet he did. I bet that guy's had his ego bruised more than a few times and held his groups hostage. Sounds pretty likely. Unless he was having like the worst day of all time before he logged in.
He just wanted PI. I should have just let him have PI.
Yeah, dude.
I was
have you thought about your role in this situation? Or do you think that you caused this to happen? You should have been more considerate of this psycho's feelings.
I mean, I gave him the ultimatum. You beat me on boss damage, you get PI. But yeah, the second weird case was like, it was actually in the beginning of this expansion. I was just pugging like an Arakara. Some holy paladin joins, and he just like types some crazy shit, and I'm like, it's whatever. We were just doing the dungeon. Like first pull, he just runs in, he starts pulling all the mob. But like, he's still playing the game, and we're doing fine. Then like second pull, he just runs in, pulls all the mob. The tank instantly dies, and then he just leaves the group. It was such a weird encounter.
That's like the dungeon version of someone getting kicked from a raid group and pulling the raid boss and trying to kill everyone. But dungeon version.
That happens a lot in I was doing a decent amount of like pug heroics back in Dragonflight Season 2, Dragonflight Season 4. And like people would get kicked on certain bosses if they screwed certain mechanics up, right? Like pretty often that's the pug thing is like, okay, you're doing heroic Sargeras or something, somebody screws up a bomb or something, like
yeah, it's ruthless. You make one mistake and you're like, you're fucking gone.
Yeah, or like even in Mirdasil, there were some bosses where it's like certain mistakes would get you kicked, right? And like I would see those people release and pull the bot. Like that was I would say like maybe a solid like 30% of the time. Yeah, it's a decent amount. Yeah, they would pull the boss.
Which is funny because I think the success chance of pulling the boss and you getting the outcome you want from it is very low. Like,
oh, the outcome you want is just wiping the raid, right? And that does happen sometimes, but yeah, it's vengeance.
Even then, it usually just gets reset. I think like someone will just yeah. So shout out all the psychos.
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of concern. So okay, I don't think this will happen with this change, but it is definitely a little bit of a worry as Blizzard moves more in a we are going to enforce a no leaver policy direction. There is definitely some worry that griefers will be able to wield that as a cudgel against you now, right? Like if it becomes
so?
known that there's an automated detection system that every time you leave a dungeon first before it's completed, that's like a mark against your character.
They'll just stay in the group and grief you.
Yeah, that like there's a worry. It's so
hostage.
sort of like in League, right? Where in League, if you dodge, bad stuff happens to you, and if you dodge multiple times, bad stuff really starts happening to you. People who want to therefore cause a dodge will like just type in chat like I'm gonna troll if this this game. They lock in some stupid champion or whatever, right? And it's they'll be like dodge or I'm griefing you for the next 30 minutes, right? And I don't think that there's any danger with this step from Blizzard of doing these bans, but that is a problem of if in particular they ever have a sort of automatic detection that catches a decent chunk of the people who are doing leaving actions, then some of those people are gonna turn into not leaving but griefing your key people. And so I guess my big request to Blizzard is if we're gonna do any automated detection for this, we got to be a step ahead of also automated detecting and much more aggressively actioning griefing intentionally keys.
Like if they banned so few people, or maybe no one, right? I believe they banned some. It'd be insane to just lie about it.
I suspect this is on the scale of hundreds or thousands, not tens of thousands or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I don't know. I think I think it shouldn't be that. Plus, like, also in that scenario where, like, oh, like, I want to be the first person to leave, you can probably leave if that person's holding you hostage, because unless that keeps happening to you and you keep being the first person who leaves, that's, like, really unlikely to set off some alarms.
Yeah, so I think this step that Blizzard's taking is definitely, it's going to do, I think, only good things, which is, like, maybe some of the worst actors have been banned for a little while, and other people are on notice, and behavior should get generally a little bit better. Probably not going to change too much, but maybe a little bit better as a result of this happening.
I mean, also, you have to assume if they ban so few people, again, I don't know exactly how bans work there, or if they ever do any manual, like, I'll look into this. The people who probably should be banned, I would say most of the time, if you're just flagging the group leave thing, just take, like, one peek at chat. Because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a good correlation between knowing who you are supposed to ban. You'd be able to get a pretty good read on their personality by just a quick, or their intent by reading chat and maybe having that do it as well. But maybe that's like, that sounds like a time-consuming thing, potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's way too much work for them. There's no.
But you have to keep in mind, you're only checking chat for the people that meet the I've left the group first really early in a Mythic Plus key, like, fucking way too many times, right? To where they didn't get any false positives, so maybe I'm dreaming. I don't really know how that shit works, but that would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, no idea.
All right, let's tier list some WoW patches.
Yeah, buddy.
Woo!
Welcome to our main event part of the show. We are going to do a tier list of the patches. So how do you what criteria do you guys want to do for this, for the our patch tier list here?
Does there need to be any other criteria other than bad good?
Bad good, like subjective, like
completely subjective.
For us as players, or like what
this
we
is
think
our tier list.
I think it's our enjoyment.
This is our fucking tier list.
Our enjoyment, because there are patches that I liked that I know were bad for other people, and patches that I didn't like that I know were good for other people.
Okay, so maybe what we do is we talk about it, and if we're all like, this is an S tier, then we do that. Okay. But if it's like someone thinks it's an S tier and someone thinks it's a D, you probably have to discuss that, which is also part of the fun podcasting. And then you kind of have to come to a conclusion, because like if someone thinks it's S and someone thinks it's D, then like putting it as a B is also wrong, right? Like there's a lot of polarizing patches where someone could love it or hate it, and putting it as average doesn't actually satisfy either of those things. So you have to like lean in a direction maybe, but
okay.
What do you guys think? Does that sound right? I don't know. Let's cross that bridge if we come to it, because I think us three, if we are doing it for our opinion, we're not trying to rate these based on everyone's opinion of these patches, because that's fucking impossible, right? Like this is kind of what we think, and then maybe people in the chat can call us all fucking idiots or something. But
that seems fair to me. Okay, do we want to just start it? This looks like it's from Legion, so do we want to start with patch 7.0?
Yeah, do we want to go chronological? Do we want to go chronological?
I think we should, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Okay. World of Warcraft, Legion.
All right, Legion just releases. This is the first time Mythic Plus is ever in this game. This is not for Emerald Nightmare. It wasn't a super, but also this patch does include all the way up through Trial of Valor and Nighthold.
No, Nighthold was after Return to Karazhan, right? Or
No, yeah, it's
was it-
before Nighthold.
Like the first tier was included Nighthold. I guess seasons weren't really they were a thing, but they like weren't an
it was
official
desynced
thing.
from patches. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So like okay, so before Nighthold, but it included Trial of Valor and
Yeah.
Legion. So like there wasn't a big artifact power grind for Emerald Nightmare. It was actually quite easy, except for mages. I think they had their like spec they needed to play swapped like 3 days before Emerald Nightmare came out, so they had to level an entire different spec, which was pretty funny. But then there was like, do you guys remember grinding for 35 for Trial of Valor, or anyone else who did that?
I remember grinding for 54 for Nighthold.
For Nighthold, yeah. The other one, it was a 5% damage boost for getting 35, and that was actually one of the hardest grinds of the expansion for Trial of Valor. I think only like probably the very, very top guilds did it, but
I think I may have done that, but I don't. I was playing so much WoW.
so
At the start of Legion.
was this the best patch of Legion? I think no, right?
There was a lot of really good stuff about 7.0. Like Mythic Plus has just been created. It's poggers. It's
But
not
do you
perfect,
give it?
but
Do you
it's
give it
poggers.
credit? Do you give it credit for that because Mythic Plus
I think so.
existed
It's your
throughout every
experience
other
during
patch?
that patch. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, do we want to give patches credit for the features that they or like expansion patches features for the credit for the features? They introduced?
You'd have to throw this all the way in S tier, and we can just stop talking about it now, right? Like,
Yeah.
Or do we want to just have it be like only the stuff that was specific to this patch? and
yeah, like
not
for
other
example,
patches?
like in BFA, you could talk about like essences because essences came out in 8.2, or I don't even remember the numbers, but like that kind of makes sense. And corruption, obviously, it existed within that season. But like Dragonflight, for the first season of Dragonflight, are we going to be like the talent trees that we have forever now? Or we're talking like the first season of Dragonflight?
I guess not.
It's
Because those
almost
are like
more
more
like
expansion features.
exactly.
Right?
I
Rather
think
than,
you
like...
kind of leave that out of it, and you maybe look at the Mythic Plus like
So
season.
we could think about like the things that happened in the M Plus season. Like Legion launch M Plus did have some problems specific to it, right?
Mhm.
Like, but I do want to give it credit because, like, okay, legendaries had a lot of problems with them that got better throughout Legion. Artifact power grinds had a lot of problems that got better throughout Legion. Mythic Plus had a lot of problems that got better throughout Legion. Remember at the start of the expansion, 3 chesting gave you triple the artifact power as 1 chesting a key, and also 3 chesting a Maw of Souls gave you the same amount of artifact power as 3 chesting a Arcway or a
Yeah.
Halls of Valor. Those problems all got fixed later in the expansion.
Those problems still exist now.
Yeah,
Kinda, right? Like gilded
Crests
crest.
got back to, that problem got re-added. They actually fixed it in Legion and then kind of rebroke it.
Dude, W Legion.
Re-added problems.
Yeah.
Okay, this was also. I think this is a good time to talk about legendaries. So this is when like Legion legendaries were introduced. I don't think of them as legendaries in like the history of WoW. Like I think Shadowmourne and like Legion legendaries are like 2 totally different things. It's almost just like a power system for the expansion. But like this patch was the patch where remember everyone said Legion would have been perfect with a vendor. Like if you had a vendor for legendaries at the beginning, but then Blizzard's like, oh no, they did that on purpose. Like they wanted, if there was a vendor for your legendary, you would never feel that sense of, oh my fucking god, the
would just
hunter
be
boots
Shadowlands.
dropped. Exactly. I never felt the feeling of getting that. Like you can actually probably ask people now, maybe anyone who's listening to this, if you looted a good legendary at the beginning of Legion, you probably remember exactly where you fucking looted it, right? That's why there wasn't a vendor. They care more about that feeling than like the gameplay aspect of it that we care about it. So like I guess we kind of have to rate this patch on that because legendaries operated totally differently in different patches, right? Like there were other patches in Legion where if you were playing the game, you had the legendaries you want. That was not true here. So it's kind of a good and a bad. What are your all's take on it?
S tier.
Yeah, I think that, again, like, I have a lot of gripes with this, but all of the problems that were introduced in 7.0 were, like, their first try at these different things, and I want to give a lot of leeway to, screwing up things the first time, and also, there was just, unarguably, so much cool and excitingness with these things, like...
Also, Demon Hunters, right? Demon Hunters just came out.
Demon Hunter got added.
Everyone had a Demon Hunter, like... In this, and I think Demon Hunters like played super well. What about the raids?
Emerald Nightmare bad. Oh wow.
They heard Emerald Nightmare.
Yeah, they heard Emerald Nightmare and just absolutely they hated that raid. Yeah, but Emerald
Trial of
Nightmare,
Valor, great.
Trial of Valor, all-time great, smaller raid, for sure. PvP, can we can all agree to? Sorry if you guys are listening to this and are PvPers, we don't care about that at all. So probably.
Hey, I cared about it. It was
Legion
fun.
had the PvP template system. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Where you
right.
just
Never
got
mind.
scaled?
We're including PvP. All right, Dorky, do your PvP section.
I don't know. I mean, it was fun. I played Boomkin and I was blasting. I was big in arenas.
I would
had a
rather
good
not
time.
have PvP be a factor for our tier
Yep.
list, but
Yeah, that's fine.
That was my
I
point.
mean, this is just my overall enjoyment of the patch. Like
Yeah.
this patch. Now, to be fair, I was not a tryhard. You know, I was not a sweat. So, well, I was a sweat because I played the game a shit ton, but I wasn't like, you know, I didn't care about being
Right.
competitive. I just enjoyed playing the game so much, and this was also my first tier like rating, so that definitely played a huge factor in it. And like in terms of just like pure enjoyment, this was one of my most enjoyed times in WoW.
Wait, I'm looking at the other patches. I don't see another patch in Legion that isn't Tuma Sargeras or Argus.
there's Return to Karazhan, of course.
Oh, is that and that? So Return to Karazhan
that's probably
includes Karazhan and Nighthold.
Yeah, it was weird. Doing this is weird. For that was the patch that came out. It also included the Broken Shore, I think, with the Mage Tower.
Oh
Yeah, we'll
Jesus.
just count that as Nighthold.
Okay, well, I think
Yeah.
I think World of Warcraft Legion, the first like beginning of the expansion, deserves to be an S. It's also one of the most popular times in recent WoW memory. Like I think Pandemic
Yeah.
Shadowlands is the only thing that was bigger. And that's I think largely due to the pandemic. I think Legion was like one of the most hyped times for WoW ever.
Yeah.
So I think it deserves to be there, but I think I can think of like 3 or 4 patches at the top of my head that were better. So in my head, maybe that means it's an A, because like that's kind of how tier lists work, right? You don't want to have like 5 patches in S tier. So maybe
Me and Dorky yelled S for this though, so I think it's got to be S.
Sure, yeah,
If we have too many in S, we can make an S plus.
Yeah, we can.
sure,
figure
that
it
we
out
can
later.
absolutely do that. Yeah,
Okay, Return to Karazhan. So Karazhan Mega Dungeon, sick. Legion Legendaries got better.
you had more likely to
Nighthold.
get the one you wanted. Yeah,
Nighthold, the single greatest raid to have ever been made at the time, at least.
top 3, no question.
Yeah.
Like it is objectively wrong or you just didn't play the raid if you think it is not a top 3 raid and is arguably the best raid of all time. Yeah.
AP grind, the worst of any part of Legion, was the Nighthold AP grind because it was the most necessary to the lowest level of guild, in my opinion. This may have just been
I
a
agree with
product
that.
of me climbing the ladder during this time, but I
agree with
remember
that.
hearing from a lot of guilds that Crosis was just impossible for them until they got their artifact power up, because each of those traits gave you stamina, and Crosis one-shot you if you didn't have enough. So I think that was a knock against this patch, but I still don't think it's possible for me to say this is anything other than an S tier patch.
It has to be above Legion release, I think.
Okay, do we want to do like ranked within tiers, where the further left, the better within a tier?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. All right, so Return to Karazhan better than 7.0?
I think so. I
Dorky,
mean, it
you
just
okay
had
with that?
it had potentially the best raid of all time compared to Emerald Nightmare and Trial of Valor. You had more legendaries. The only knock is an artifact grind. I don't think they added any dungeons here, right? Seat and Cathedral were later.
It was just Karazhan.
Just Karazhan, which, by the way, bringing back Karazhan was fucking sweet.
It was amazing. What they did with the Return to
Yeah,
Karazhan was so cool. Like they didn't just do what they do when they return dungeons these days. Like they made a whole dungeon. It was all new,
Yeah.
basically stuff. It was so cool.
The hard mode was fun too.
Oh god, the hard mode was awesome. Yeah.
What was the game? Nightbane? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did Nightbane, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you had to
Nightbane
like
was
kill.
fun.
You had to keep killing bosses within 5 minutes or whatever to keep
Yeah.
So it was basically like a little M plus mode in M0.
Yeah.
Nightbane was actually pretty challenging too, at least for me at the time.
All right, so
yeah, I
where
didn't
are
play
we?
the first half, so or I only played the first half. I meant to say, so I don't have a whole lot to comment on this.
What about so probably just Tomb then, right?
Yeah, Tomb of Sargeras patch.
So, I mean, I feel like if you think they kind of all had, I mean, I don't think Legion was similar to like BFA where it got like way fucking better as the expansion went on. Legion was kind of just always really
Oh.
good.
I was wrong earlier, by the way. Mage Tower was added in 7.2. So this is when the Mage Tower and the Broken Shore was added, of course.
Okay,
that's where the team is.
Mage Tower is one of the like. Obviously, it's one of the best things they've added to the game for what it was trying to do, but it also had extremely high approval rating from a surprisingly high amount of factions of WoW players, including casuals, that saw it as a challenge they could aspire to, and they allowed you to do that because they allowed you to get more gear. I think the expansion was out for like at least a year after the Mage Tower came out, so like you could just kind of over gear it, so it wasn't like it was completely unobtainable. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. They liked it so much they brought it back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did Legion get worse?
I think Tomb was less of a good raid than Nighthold, because every raid was less of a good raid than Nighthold.
That's true. I think Tomb wasn't a bad raid, but I don't think Tomb was as good of a raid as Nighthold.
Is this an S tier patch? It did have the Mage Tower.
Yeah, I was about to say, without the Mage Tower, it probably goes in A.
Yeah, I think so as well. But I'm ready to call this bottom of S tier.
It also added Cathedral of the Eternal Night, I think.
Good dungeon.
Just super random shout out. That's like one of my favorite dungeons ever. I know it was like really hard when it came out, but I think Cathedral's like really, really fucking cool. I think put it in S, probably put it at the bottom of S. Yeah. That's
Dorki, you okay with that?
I didn't play this patch, so whatever.
Fair.
Also, one interesting note about Tomb, and this is something, it's kind of weird because we used kind of an opposite take for why the beginning of Legion was so good. But like by Tomb of Sargeras, that was the point where if you were playing the game, I don't know how much because everyone that was playing around me was playing all the time, but you had every single legendary that you wanted at this point in the expansion. If you wanted your best, like if you wanted exactly this legendary, these two legendaries, you had those by this point.
I think for a lot of the like moderate to low end players, it was actually Shadows of Argus where that came true.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah,
everyone that I'm talking about was doing world tours.
If you were doing world tours, you had it in Tomb, yeah. And if you weren't, you could get it in even then you could get it in Shadows of Argus, even if you were like a 2 hour a week gamer or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of which, Shadows of Argus and Taurus the Burning Throne raid. I would say better than
Tomb, worse than Nighthold. Better than Tomb, worse than Nighthold.
Agrimar, all timer encounter.
Agrimar's awesome. I also think Argus for most people is just an awesome fight. There was like it was one of those raids with a ton of. I also think some of the worst bosses of all time were in that raid. However, they were inconsequentially early.
ENR.
Right? So yeah, like ENR is an absolutely horrid fight, but they also had really, really cool mid boss raids. Like Kingaroth was awesome. Portal Keeper was awesome. So yeah, they had some good stuff in there. Iminar, oh yeah, the bridge boss. Oh man, if Frank can find it, please put in the podcast the clip of Trill going up the bridge and like messing it up 4 times and like taking a gateway backwards and getting stunned. It was so funny. Sorry, Trill, if you're listening to this. It's so funny though. Elephant.
Pop me.
Yeah, just go.
No.
No!
Dispel him. That's what I was talking about.
More.
I'm trying.
Just fucking.
Unreal.
Just stop. We can still do this. Yeah, this is. Are we putting all of Legion in S tier? Because that would be.
I'm down. It was a good expansion.
Like Argus was the best patch.
You think Argus was the best patch? You think the
end
of
like
Legion was
the outdoor world content was sick. The Netherlight Crucible was
insane.
pretty okay. The being able to purchase any or get any legendary you wanted if you were anybody was awesome. The raid was good. The M plus was good.
Yeah, M
class
plus
balance
was like peak.
Yeah, class balance was pretty good.
Class balance was not very good. Windwalkers were like 10% better than the next class in single target and AoE. You ran like 3 or 4 of them in the MDI, and Blood DKs were way better than every other tank. I don't like. I think
class
balance
was maybe not the greatest.
I think if you approached the end of Legion with a 2020 to a post-pandemic mindset of optimization in gaming to Legion, I think people would have been a lot more upset. I think people did not care as much then, and that's fine.
I will say, like, yeah, if they ran these patches back, I think only Return to Karazhan or maybe Tomb would hold up, like, to more modern sentiments.
I think
we would have torn the 7.0 legendary stuff to shreds if they did
exactly.
If they ran that back.
That's so fascinating because I think
and this is definitely not a cold take. This is a hot take. I think Blizzard made and I did not used to think this. I think Blizzard made the right decision kind of with the way Legendaries dropped. I don't know. I basically used to be, there should have been a vendor. Of course there should have been a vendor. I'm kind of anti-vendor and more they shouldn't have lied about the obvious soft caps on Legendaries. Then they literally lied about it. They said like that doesn't exist. 100% bullshit. Like that maybe shouldn't have existed. It should have been more like linear with your acquisition of them. But I also I admire their game design decision to like make them a little bit harder to obtain, but actually you care so much more about getting them. Even though at the time I hated that, but I think now looking back on it, I think that was like really important. But at the same time, I think people would fucking hate that now. I don't think you would even be able to do that now. You would have to. They would change it. They would like just like Shadowlands Covenants. Like they would have to change it. Which is interesting how much a game and gamers and the gaming community can change in just that amount of time. But
yeah, I
All
think
right,
what
so-
helped a lot was just the amount of content in that patch. Because like I just remember there was just like so much stuff to do. Like you'd be doing a world quest for like the Devil's Sword baton thing, which would also like let you get AP, but you could also get a chance at a legendary, and it's just like the dungeons were fun. M plus was new, so M plus was also fun to do, and it just felt like there was an abundance of content to do at the time, which is what made it feel fun or okay.
it was also just one of those times. I don't really know if
Yeah.
this take is going to make any sense. But like it just came out at a perfect time. Like Legion existed at exactly the right time Legion needed to exist. Like kind of
Yeah.
the opposite of that would be Shadowlands. Like there's this like huge nexus in gaming. Everyone's gaming, everyone's looking for a game, and then they do Shadowlands. Like imagine if like Legion happened in the pandemic and how much more of a W that would have been. Not saying it wouldn't have existed before, but like something as good as Legion happened then. Right? Like that would have been just absolutely massive for World of Warcraft. Overall S tier for Legion, obviously. They're all fucking up there. Which we may alter that a little bit later when we get some more stuff in there, but I think this is kind of a random side note. Do you guys think people are going to play Legion Classic?
Probably.
I mean, yeah, surely. If people are playing every classic, of course they'll play.
Okay,
Legion
but do you
Classic.
think it's going to be like, okay, this many people are playing Kata and then Mop and then WOD, and then Legion happens and like double the amount of people play? Do you think it's going to be like a massively different thing?
I think it depends on what's gonna be out at the time, right? Like we don't know what it's gonna look like. Like what if Last Titan or whatever it is at the
I
time
think we will
is
be in
just an
Last Titan.
absolute
I'm just doing
banger.
math in my head. Yeah, I'm just doing
Yeah.
math in my head, but I think we would be in the Last Titan, yeah, when that happens.
Yeah, because it's just gonna be so hard to be able to commit to playing both. Like you're kind of forced to just play one or the other. Like there's no shot I'm gonna be able to play Classic Legion and Last Titan at the same time, unless it's like there's literally nothing going on in Last Titan. Which I mean, like if that's the case, but like maybe Last Titan isn't so great after all. But and I would much rather just be playing Legion.
I think it
But
might
yeah,
get
like-
old. I think I would be super very, very sorry, we'll move on to BFA in a second, but like I would be very interested to see how people like 8-year-old Mythic Plus. Or actually at that point it would be 10-year-old Mythic Plus. I would be fascinated to see that
I
interaction.
think there will be a lot of people who didn't play it the first time that would be extremely down.
I would say more. Okay, so like this is actually my Mop thing. I have said for the past 10 years that Mop had the best class design ever in WoW. I like said that very confident with my chest, and now Mop is coming out I think in like a year, and I'm terrified that I've said that for 10 years because I'm almost positive that that's wrong, and that like it's just going to be super dated, and I'm going to be. I hope I'm not wrong. Love being right, but like I just feel like that won't be true. Like people, if anyone feels like the best Mythic Plus ever was in Legion. If you're that person and then you're like logging into Legion, I think nostalgia may have blinded you a little bit because it was new and really cool. And going back and doing it may not have the same experience.
Yeah. I would say my two problems with them bringing back Legion Classic would be, one is it's too solved, so it won't be as fun to play if you already like know what's going to be OP, what the strategies are, what the meta of playing most optimally and min-maxing is. And the second is the amount of quality of life that they've added to retail that they don't have in Legion.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a retail patch, right? Like I would consider Legion retail. Like it would make no sense to add quality of life like cross faction it to vanilla WoW, right? Like, there's no shot you would ever add that to Classic, but you need that kind of stuff in Legion, and I don't think there's a chance.
That's a fascinating discussion. Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah, like, they have to add ping system, they have to add cross faction, they have to add
well, yeah, because like I guess the argument would
Lunasaurs.
be like it would objectively make that expansion better by adding all these things that were great.
right, because
and they
it's
added
literally
later.
retail. Like, it's just
That's also
right
subjective.
now we
though.
have. I think it's like, I think that's one of those things that is like,
I
pretty
agree with
widely
you. but-
accepted. Like, I don't see anyone who's gonna be against cross faction in Legion. Whereas,
Okay,
like,
I have
people
another
would be
question for
heavily
you then.
against cross faction in Classic.
I have a question for
Yo.
both of you then. This is kind of a little bit off track of the tier list, but this is a podcast. Endless content is really great. We can give our viewers some Thanksgiving bonus content. But when did Classic become retail then? If Legion is retail, and right now we're in Kata and that's Classic, when did retail happen?
Kata, in my opinion.
You think they're in retail now, so you think they should add a ping system to Kata and...
Oh, 100%. Well, I think they should add ping system to all of the, like, even in
You should add
old
classic like to hardcore and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I think it would be so much better, but I don't think they should add like cross faction, for example, or
Yeah, cross faction clearly does not fit in classic vanilla.
Before
yeah, but I
BFA,
think it belongs in Kata. Like,
because
I
there's
think
an
Kata
entire
could use it.
expansion devoted to the faction divide kind of.
Well,
right?
Legion would be better with it, and that's before BFA.
Yeah,
True.
exactly.
True. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, how mad are people going to be by if they impose the same legendary soft caps that absolutely existed at the beginning of Legion? How mad are people when they
Oh,
lose,
that would
when they
suck
don't
so
lose their best
bad.
legendary? And how many characters are they going to make so that doesn't happen?
Yeah, that would be, oh my god, it would be awful. Like, anybody who was playing Legion Classic seriously would have to, if you were trying to, like, actually min-max, you'd have to play so many hours if they didn't fix that.
Yeah, I mean, Legion in general was just way too grindy to play as
Yeah.
a classic. Because
Did you get-
maybe my view of classic is different, but I see classic sort of as like a side game, but you can't really side game Legion.
Well, you could side game Legion if you just weren't playing Mythic Plus all day, but yeah. Oh, I guess no AP grind. You're right.
No,
AP
yeah, like
grind made it
AP,
not side game. You could not
Legendary.
side game. Yeah, you're totally right.
Titan Forging. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Legion, huge W. Let's move it along.
All right, BFA, patch 8.0. I think this was
Way down.
possibly the worst patch to have ever been. Maybe not.
I
This
think
is a
there's
bad patch.
maybe one patch that's
Yeah.
worse, but
It's
that had
so bad.
There's one patch. Okay, I would argue on its own merits in game that this patch was the worst WoW patch. But I think there was a patch where the feeling on WoW was worse.
Yes.
It was close, but it had things to do with like all the lawsuit shit at Blizzard and like everyone leaving to play a different game. Maybe you guys know what patch I'm talking about. If you're listening to this, but like I don't think you could argue that like that was a actual worse patch than this patch, because they also like let you pick any covenant in that patch too. Like there were some good parts to it. This was just every single part of this patch was made better later in the expansion, like significantly. This was what, one tier, tier one at only one tier one Azerite trade Azerite armor. You couldn't trade it initially. Residum didn't exist yet. No essences, no corruption, things that massively saved this expansion. And Uldir, which was a super whatever raid, right? Like one of the most whatever raids of all time. I don't know where exactly you'd rank it in the raid situation, but whatever. And then Mythic Plus had infested. You brought in seasonal affixes and added maybe the worst one ever, right? So I mean, this is dog shit, right? Like I don't know. And it's coming off. Remember Dratnos? You level in BFA,
Dude.
And you lose every cool thing you had in Legion, and it just all goes away.
There's so much else wrong with this patch as well. Like, we introduced the Heart of Azeroth and the Azerite armor, but like none of the traits were good, and you only got one ring on your Azerite armor, and like it was all bad. You just took Archive of the Titans, and also the Island Expedition situation as well was.
That was throughout. That was persistent.
Yeah. And also Uldir. So I liked Uldir as a raid. I will say I did like Uldir. I liked the BFA dungeons
Yeah,
in
I
Mythic
liked it
Plus.
too.
So that side of things was good, but I don't think it's enough to keep this out of F tier for me as a patch.
Would you put Uldir in your top 10 raids of all time?
I think it's probably close to 10th. I don't know which side of the line it is.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like kind of whatever to me, right? Like that's what I meant. I meant mid. I didn't mean bad. But I could name 10 off the dome that are better than Uldir.
Okay.
Right. So that's all I meant. Yeah, I'll put it in F. I'll put it in F.
All right.
I mean, I don't hate this patch as much as the other patch that we're talking about. So
We can put that in F2.
I would put it one above that, but yeah.
I will say again, like, I do definitely empathize with they introduced Freehold and, you know, all these great dungeons in this patch.
Yeah, but it's just...
That I don't think, like, because I think the stuff that was specific to 8.0 and did not continue into the rest of BFA was all so bad.
This was arguably the worst version of Freehold you did the whole expansion.
True.
Because
the
of
class
Infested.
balance was also kind of fun. Like, I don't know. I had a decent time with this patch. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
say
this
I
was
hated
before
it.
the Blood Decay nerfing. The 8.1, you know, gutting of Blood Decay and Sub Rogue took them years to recover both those specs.
Yeah.
Sub still
Just a good
hasn't
amount of
recovered at
DPS
least
and
the
healers.
thing it lost then.
Yeah, but like to even just be a good spec for anything
Sub was
took years for both of them. Okay, so let's move on to that patch then. So the next patch is Tides of Vengeance, which was Battle of Zarlor. Pretty
Great
hot
patch.
garbage raid though, right? Like bod.
Ooh,
I don't
interesting. I think bod has like a pretty high approval rating amongst people. So I actually
It was a
said this on
vibe
my
raid.
stream. I said that bod was a like bad raid, and then it was mostly because a lot of the really, really cool fights were just killed instantly. Like, for example, we killed 7 bosses on the first day, or would have if the last boss wasn't bugged. And you can't appreciate any really cool boss that you instantly kill, right? It's really hard to do that. But like a lot of people took a long time to kill that raid, and they really liked a lot of those. Like Opulence, really cool.
Oh, Opulence was great. Opulence is a banger, but man, I felt like just even mechanically, Council, Rastakhan, Stormwall Blockade were all just like stinkers of encounters. Maybe that was because we finished them fast as well.
I thought
relatively,
Rastakhan was a really cool idea. Like,
I thought it was a cool idea for sure, but I felt like the encounter itself was so underwhelming. But
yeah,
maybe that
okay.
was like a difficulty thing that
What about
wouldn't have
Jaina?
existed for people that were a little bit lower. Jaina, I didn't really like Jaina. Like Jaina Phase 1 I thought was kind of stinky.
Phase 1's
Intermission was
definitely
kinda
stinky. The intermission was cool.
It was a cool
but
concept, but it was not fun to
gameplay-
do.
I think for a lot of people, the like Jaina fight lived up to what they expected fighting Jaina would feel like. It was very frosty. The end of the fight, the no lust thing was really weird. Actually, we found a way to lust, but like the no lust thing is really strange. Yeah, okay. I mean, we can be simple here. BOD is certainly a mid rate. I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like. Could you say that BOD was significantly worse than Uldir? I don't.
I
know if
don't
a lot
think
of people would agree with
significantly.
that.
I do think I would rate Uldir above Bod, but I don't think we're talking about different ballparks here.
Yeah, I agree.
The rest of this patch, we got the second ring of Azerite. We got the faction assaults on the different zones. We got Reaping.
Really good
The
seasonal affix.
bangerest season affix. Well, the best seasonal affix so far, because the previous
And
one
it's
had been
so
infested.
simple. Just
It was,
increases mob count you are fighting by more than double. That's awesome. What was I going to say? You kind of passed over 2 tier 1 Azerite rings, but it's also when they made a much more concerted effort to make tier 1 Azerite traits actually good and interesting.
True.
And I think that was really important.
If you remember things in BFA like Keep Your Wits About You, Azerite trait for Outlaw Rogue, that didn't exist at the start of the expansion. That got added, I think, in this patch.
A lot of good ones
Bastion
got
of
added
Yeah.
in this patch.
too.
Yeah.
Pester Might. This was peak.
I still don't think there was like enough meat on the bone of this patch. I'm feeling B tier for this patch. I don't know about you guys.
No, I completely agree. I was going to say B makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
I
certain
was
it
a
can't
big
be
enjoyer of
A
this
or
patch.
S in my opinion because maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I actually think that the next 2 patches linearly actually go in that direction.
Okay, let's do Rise of Azshara.
But this is this one is this is not a surprise. The last patch is going to be the most S tier shit of all time, but like this patch, I'm not sure if this patch is A. We can talk about it. The seasonal affix was
Garbage.
also arguably the worst seasonal affix of all time.
I think Beguiling was the worst seasonal affix, yeah, because like it was Infested was like their first shot at it, and it gets huge points to me for a first shot, and Beguiling I think was at least as bad, maybe worse, and it was also the same mistake, but again, and it was like there's so many pulls that were just turbo. There
were weeks that were like just dead.
There were 12 weeks on the calendar, of which 2 were push weeks and 10 were dead weeks. It was crazy. There was like 2 fortified enchanted weeks that were playable, and then 2 that weren't, and yeah, it was awful.
You know, it's crazy we say this because like there's so many bad weeks, but I still played Bad Patch more than I am playing WoW right now, and like this season still has 3 more months to go, and I'm already like basically done with this season. But that season, I played so much; it was actually crazy. Like it was a really fun patch for me.
I'm gonna have a
The
similar
classes were really
argument
fun.
for the beginning
What
of
is that?
Shadowlands to what you're saying right now.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay.
also so Crucible of Storms happened in the previous patch, right? I believe that was
No.
before.
Yeah, I just kind of want to not, because it was technically in patch 8.
Oh yeah.
No, it was in. It
Wait,
was in.
no,
Yeah, it was
no,
in
no,
Title
no,
X.
it's this one. Yeah, no, it's this one.
It was 815, right?
It came out 3 months after Battle of Bazaar
Yeah.
Lord did.
Wait, is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you think
But-
the reason I wanted to bring it up is, do you think that doesn't change the tier? Maybe, but is Crucible of Storms a negative or a positive for you?
It's positive
It
for
was
me.
a positive for me. Yeah. I didn't even do Mythic. All I did was Heroic, and it was a positive for me.
Oh, interesting. That's actually, because I think that would relate most to our viewers. It was also randomly the easiest heroic boss of all time, end boss, the last boss, Unat. But like, I guess it was just technically content. There were some people I know that have negative feelings about it because they just never could interact with it really on Mythic because Jaina was still out. But also, like, they tuned it exactly for that reason, right? Like, they made it impossibly hard because they knew only those guilds would have ever had time for it. And I think that was a decision kind of similar to Plunderstorm, where they're like, I'm not happy because they made content that isn't for me. The Crucible was that for some people.
But the
Crucible-
Heroic was still good.
Crucible Mythic was the first of 2 times that I've done world first progression in that I've pulled a boss that hasn't been world firsted yet. Unat, when we started pulling it, hadn't been killed yet. And then, do you want to know the second time? It was actually Brood Twister Ovanax. We were on that boss before you guys killed it, which is a while. Like, no other tier since then.
I was going to try to guess
before it's been killed.
I was going to try to guess, and my other guess would have been Tindril, which would have made sense because that was like another boss that.
Now we were on Smoldy when you guys
Yeah,
killed that one.
Tindril and Brood Twister have a lot of parallels in that a lot of guilds were at them before
Yeah.
they should have been at them, if that makes
It's
sense.
hard wall.
Yeah.
Or they were just impossibly hard. Yeah. Okay, cool. So bringing it back to the actual patch. Sorry, I should have mentioned that before. Eternal Palace.
I hated this raid. I hated Eternal Palace. Like,
yeah, that raid stinked.
Azshara was a boss that I hated, and Zakul, I know you liked, Max. I hated that fight.
Like Zakul, yeah, I like Zakul. Love
Queen's-
Ashbane too.
Yeah, Ashbane.
The
I like
earlier
Ashbane.
bosses were cool. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Blackbot Behemoth as well was sort of like Tindril in that everybody thought it was going to suck because it had a gimmick, and it was definitely not as good as Tindril, but it was also not as bad as we
It was
hated,
a fine,
as we were worried.
just a fine encounter, but everyone
Yeah.
was like, "This is going to be the worst thing of all time."
Yeah.
I don't really know why, looking back on it, actually, but it was just like everyone was sure it was going to suck. And
I mean, underwater in WoW just sucks
Yeah,
ass.
exactly. It was
Like,
just you just
Underwater's
heard the word
almost never
underwater
good.
boss, and you were like, "This has got to suck, right?"
It's
And
like
it
the
was,
delve.
actually
Yeah.
Underwater
okay.
delve is dog shit.
Oh, dude, the underwater delves do suck. Although
So
on Warlock, it's pretty good. I know
usually
Brad.
on end bosses, a lot of people are like, "This boss stinks," and then I'll be like, "Oh, but like for us, it was great because like you got all these extra challenges and like there was a reason it was really cool." And like Azshara is the opposite of that. Actually, Azshara had like one of the least fun race to world first times ever. It was like the only time in recent memory and any time when we've been competing in the race where they left a phase completely unprogressively overtuned for so many days that it just like we just felt completely worthless and we were wasting our time. Like that's something, shout out to them, like that pretty much never happens now. Like they're on top of that, but that was like just such an annoying feeling for sure. It also leveled out that race. What else happened this
The
match?
zones
Okay,
too. The zones were fucking sick. Best
Yeah.
zones. Or
so
some of the best.
Najatar, right?
Yeah, and Mechagon. And also, that's when the Mega Dungeon came out.
True. Mechagon where does Mechagon rank for you guys in the tier list of the mini tier list of mega dungeons?
As a mega dungeon, this was a mega banger. It was so good.
Yes. It was a good mega dungeon, although all 4 of the mega dungeons they've made have been great mega dungeons, right? Like Karazhan was sick. Tazavesh was the best. Dawn of the Infinite was
I
sick
felt
as a
like
mega
Tazavesh
dungeon.
was dog shit as a mega dungeon.
Really? I loved Tazavesh as a mega dungeon.
I mean, I don't even know what the hard mode was. What even was the hard mode?
You went and you went into the like you got your forged credentials or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah.
you went into
what
the
happens
club.
after?
Then the bosses were harder.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember Tazavesh being dog shit as a mega dungeon. I mean, as a dungeon, it was great in M+, but
Yeah.
My
So
mega
on the
dungeon
M plus side of
experience-
things,
Megagon was great.
Mecharon was good as M plus dungeons. Yeah. Junkyard had a problem of being like too easy, and that did some warping things to high M plus. But it was like the same stuff that Court of Stars and Shadow and Burial Grounds did in this season.
Well, I'm talking about as a mega dungeon right now. It's just like
Yeah, exactly. As
how
a
it
mega
was during the
dungeon,
patch.
it was good, but I think all the mega dungeons were good. I can't really separate
Yeah.
them in my head too much. Like I could make a list that would be there. I could make an order of them, but they're definitely all in the same tier for
Yeah.
me.
So W Mega Dungeon. Also, Essences got released this patch, and I think
That was a banger.
while Essences did provide some abrasion for, there was like some grinds that maybe weren't fun.
Yeah.
But Essences, I think, in large part actually saved a lot of the gameplay of BFA, and I think were a very, very large shining light, very positive thing for the expansion. So those huge W, I think.
There were some that were pretty fun. There was like Vision of Perfection that was based on your major cooldown. That was really fun.
Oh yeah.
Lucid Dream on Fire Mage and Arms Warrior gave you huge fun
Insane.
resource gameplay. Most
Blood
of the other
Enemy,
ones,
That was a banger.
yeah, Blood was, but most of the other ones fell into a pretty similar category of this button lights up every 2 minutes or every 3 minutes, and then I press it, and then it, like there was the single target one where you summoned like a golem and it would just hit the boss. And you'd press that every.
There was
three,
the
that
super
that
boring
was
one
dumb.
where you just shot like an Azerite missile at whatever.
that's
and
the
it was like
big-
Yeah,
super
there's
strong for tanks.
Flame, the fire one.
Yeah,
There was just
concentrated
your
flames.
basic level one, and that was and then there was also the Azerite beam, which like
That was cool.
it was like objectively sick, right? Especially when you got the dude. Do you guys remember the rank 4 animation on that thing?
Yeah, it
Oh
looked
my
sick as
God.
fuck. Oh
It's
yeah.
so poggers.
Also them
rank
going-
4s for
Yeah,
Essences
rank
was
4s
such inspired design.
Rank 4s were that's just something that didn't need to exist at all.
Yeah.
But the fact that it existed and they were chase items to get purely for cosmetics was awesome.
I've been a bit of a doomer on Essences for the reasons of like most specs in the game just played one that was like a, you press this with your CDs and you kind of forget about it. But there were enough cool ones that I'm happy calling that like I think that feature was like a tier feature, not an S tier feature.
While
And closer
the
to B
zones,
than S.
while the zones were awesome, there were parts of the zones that were really bad. So I think the worst part of this patch by far is Benthic gear.
Yep.
So if you guys did not play in this patch, basically you looted these items from the zone that you could upgrade with pearls that were just another thing, and you needed to like loot, let's just say like 50 belts to get a belt with the right thing and a socket, and now that's the one you're going to upgrade. And then that would be a blue piece of gear, not purple or anything, and that would be better than every single item that would drop for you in the raid, and that was true for about half of your slots. Keep in mind, 3 of your slots were BIS because of Azerite. So like most of the thing that dropped in the raid that weren't trinkets or weapons just weren't even good for you because you were wearing blue gear, and it was just
That was garbage, yeah.
it was garbage. Yeah, it was so bad. And it was a huge grind too.
Yeah,
we
that's
didn't
a
talk a
regular
lot
problem.
we didn't talk a lot about Azerite grinding in this expansion, but that was also very real and significantly more difficult than all of the Legion ones. Like the grinding for 42 in Battle of Dazar'alor, grinding for I think it was 60.
It was 70 for Azshara for me at least. It was probably not for you guys. Yeah, it was probably 60 for you guys.
Yeah, 60 before the race, and that was at least then for like this is Race World First specific stuff, but like instead of now you make 15 characters, then you couldn't do that. You only played one character, and it's because you actually did 16-hour days of islands for 2 weeks to have the Azerite stuff you needed in time for the raid, which strangely just in case this is interesting to you, a lot of our players actually prefer that. They would rather do 16 hours a day for 2 weeks of islands and only have one character than have 15 of the same class, which kind of makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah, the problem is now you would still have 15 in the same class. They'd just be in last tier's gear, and then you would you'd grind them between patches, and then they would still do your split stuff, right?
Yeah, it would be absolutely cursed and bad. Yeah, okay. We've talked about this a decent amount.
Yeah.
The question is whether it's A.
I would place this in B tier myself, but I'm willing to place it in A if you guys think it's A.
This is an A for me personally.
I would put it in A.
That sounds like an A tier patch then.
W.
All right, Visions of Nzoth. S tier from me.
Number one
S tier
patch.
for me too.
It's the best patch in my opinion. It's the best patch in WoW in the last like 10, 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Corruption, acquisition problems at the start, inspired system. One of the only systems they've ever made with itemization in WoW that doesn't have like a great answer. Like you could genuinely make a good argument about I should play 39 corruption on this encounter. I should play only 19 corruption. Right, like not just what corruption
There was
you
no,
use, but
and there
the
was no
amount.
right answer. It was
Yeah.
kind of dependent on the player.
Yeah, and
which
the
is
player, the class.
fascinating.
Like I teched in. I was playing like Hunter this season in some keys at some points, and I was like, I remember swapping to a 18 corruption plus avoidance corruption set so I could live the last boss of Toldagor. Because like if you on last boss of Toldagor you couldn't move, so if you had the eyes spawning, you would get killed by standing in your eye. And like as a hunter, I was just dead. So I like it was really fun coming up with that tech and like figuring it out and making it work and doing the key. Yeah, corruption was just awesome. This was not a perfect system, but it was an awesome system, and I care way more about that.
It was different for other people. Like for example, I don't think these two things are the same. If your class had mastery stacking corruption, where that just meant your mastery did more damage, but it didn't change your game at all, I don't think that is as fun as like haste corruption, where you're actually like going fast as fuck. Like
although the class that liked the mastery corruption the most
was also the best class
patch.
in the game.
Yeah, that was
they all love this patch because I mean there's some level of just how good you are means how much fun you're having, which is a part of this game. But like,
dude, Fire Mage was so sick this patch, and the thing about it was it had a 6-part, like it had 6 Infinity Stones.
Yep.
Yeah, it was literally
Font of Power.
Lucid Dream rank 3, Bracers from Mechagon, Badge from PvP,
4-piece from Nyalotha,
4-piece, and then Masterful Corruption. And if you got those Infinity Stones, you could snap anything out of existence. It was crazy.
Yeah, but also
I actually grinded that on my mage so I could do that patch.
While doing the most damage, though, I do think there were other classes where
yes,
their corruption meaningfully made their class more fun to play versus just their output. So Ineffable Truth, huge. Right, like you
Twilight
actually
Dev was fun.
Yeah, I mean, shooting Twilight
things.
Devs. That was absolutely.
This was a great patch as well for idiots performing badly because they would stack infinite stars, and that corruption was good on like one raid boss fight and not useful anywhere else. And people thought it was this because it simmed the best.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. This is like peak people getting tricked by single target sims, which still happens all the time. Like 5-minute single target sims or what everyone bases their opinions off of, even though those sims were only made to compare talents against each other within your class and never to compare damage across multiple classes. And also, have you ever fought a boss that was 5 minutes and purely single target? It's literally never happened. Like, it's just a meaningless number.
Chadhar.
Chadhar was Chadhar is and it's in this.
That's
range.
why Infinite Stars was fucking good on that fight.
Yep.
It was also good on Mott because you could kill yourself with the reflection of it and yell at your healers. That was funny.
What about Nyalotha as a raid?
That was alright. It
thought it was pretty good raid.
trash.
It was a really good patch, and the gameplay was just good in general.
Yeah.
But which matters a lot because it's the car you're driving through the content, right? If you've got a really sick car for the patch, a lot of things are gonna be pretty fun. Like I would say like kind of negative. Like if you went down the hole and farm, you were like a psycho.
Yeah.
Like I don't think
Il'gynoth sucked.
Nzoth wasn't like an amazing end boss. Carapace was a super whatever second to last boss. Yeah, Il'gynoth is actually one of my favorite fights of all time, but I do understand the negative opinions of anyone who did the no dispel strategy. That sounds absolutely horrible. The soccer boss was pretty cool, I think. Like the kicking the balls in. That was like kind of inspired. Vexiona
That
was
boss
good.
painful.
Yeah, dude. Soccer boss was awful on farm as well. You swap anybody out, and it was so miserable. We just like chained our original soccer doers for all of farm to never get to sit that fight.
That's the smart thing to do. They can never take a week off.
Yeah.
That Visions
were sick.
Again,
there were problems with them, but they were
kinda.
sick.
They're bringing Visions back, or they're improving upon what Visions are, and they're re-implementing them in the game in some way in a future.
Yeah, we don't know how.
Envisioning them.
I will say there's definitely ways that they could do it, which would not be anywhere close to as good as they were the first time. But yeah, Visions are sick. For like the solo progression experience in Visions was so fun for me. I loved the process of like trying to do better every week while your corruption resistance was going up, and I remember whether I could get the 5 mask run on 10 upgraded cloak versus 11 was like, I felt really good that I was able to do it on 10, and it was hard, and it was challenging. It was really rewarding. So
yeah, doing like full mask clears and shit, or was it no mask, or what was the one?
It was 5 masks. Yeah,
5 mask. Yeah, doing that shit early was like such an interesting challenge.
It was such a I've never had my heartbeat go up except in Mage Tower, Visions, and Raid in WoW like that.
Well, you gotta play hardcore WoW. That'll get you
I guess
hard
Mythic
bump.
Plus as well.
Okay, Awakened also.
Banger affix, holy.
Just if you're talking about when Blizzard came up with seasonal affixes, just everything that Awakened does is just perfect. It like gives you a decision at the end of the dungeon to like, do you want to fight a harder version of the boss? You can if you want. You can save some time earlier. It solved the problem of before this point. Like, I'm glad you made that extra tier. We made a tier alone for this patch above all the other Legion.
Yeah, it's going to an S+. The more we talk about it, it's just I forgot about Awakened. Also, just like M+ was so fun this patch. All the classes felt so OP. There was some that were OP'er for like if you were trying to get world first, keys or whatever. But like even the classes that sucked, the gear rewards stopped at I want to say 15, and world first keys were like 35s. And this was like I guess it was 31s, something like that. But like you were so OP against the content, and that was so fun. And then if you wanted to, you could just push the key up to it. It's an infinite scaling system, so you just push it up, and it was hard again. But like if you wanted to do a weekly key, you could go into a weekly key as a tank, and like I would just run in with Vamp Blood into a pack and be playing like 200 Corruption or Twilight Dev, and it would proc, and it would just chunk the pack, and it felt so good.
I would probably rather be in prison than sign up to do an MDI or TGP season right now. And I did the MDI at the end of BFA, and I loved every single minute we practiced. It was all off stream. I lost a ton of money. That's how much fun this patch was. You were learning something all the time. What you could do in these dungeons with Awakened had like infinite creativity. And we ended up doing the global finals, so I think I didn't stream for like 5 weeks or something from the beginning of this shit. And if I could go back in time, I'd do the same thing, even though I wouldn't do it now. I just think that just shows how much the end of that expansion was fun, just pure gameplay. If you're a gameplay person, that was just the best time to play the game, probably ever.
Yeah, this was definitely the golden age of M+. This was also when a ton of teams were playing. Like, I remember live keys, there were just... This was also when you did the live key extravaganza, or push week extravaganza. I think.
Push week extravaganza, that was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was actually sick.
We were just live for like 10 hours a day for a whole week, just watching push keys and doing like a broadcast of it.
Yeah,
that is insane content,
too.
By the way. Why does that not happen now? Does just no one care?
Well, because there's no push weeks. There's no push weeks and nobody pushes.
Yeah, but there was push
anymore.
Weeks last expansion, but no one would have.
Yeah, but also nobody plays
cared.
keys. Yeah, like I don't think you understand the amount of people that pushed keys compared to.
No, I do understand. I was just pointing out how much I would rather be imprisoned than do that now, and I would have done it all day, every day then, right?
No, but like just like seeing all those groups play was fucking sick. Like I'm pretty sure like, Dreadles, you guys had like a consistent like 3 to 4K viewership.
Yeah, it was like 4K,
the
and this was
entire
at a time where my average viewership was like a couple hundy.
Yeah, and this was
yeah.
when M+
There's also
streaming
Twitch.
wasn't as big.
Twitch had infinite less viewership in general. 3 to 4K then is like 10K viewers now.
Yeah,
you
we were
a
like
big
one of the
fucking
top
streamer.
streams
you were a
on
top
Twitch.
WoW streamer for
No, yeah,
the
they're top
entire
streams on
week.
WoW. Yeah, it was sick.
That was fucking crazy.
Okay, all good things
What
must come
time?
to an end. The Shadowlands cometh.
Okay, so this is
first patch
interesting.
wasn't bad.
I was going to say, this is what I find fascinating about Shadowlands. You have,
Okay.
if you ask people about Shadowlands, they ask them what the worst part about Shadowlands was. They obviously say Covenants. They're like, you can't swap Covenants. Fuck that. We were telling them they didn't listen to us. We told them all of beta, and they just fucking didn't listen. They did it, and they were wrong. And they say that. And then they also say, they'll mention things like conduit energy. That was another big thing people talked about. Just not a super consequential system, but it was just like, why the fuck does this exist kind of thing. All of those bad things existed at the beginning of Shadowlands, but if you ever ask someone what their favorite part of Shadowlands was, every single one of them will tell you it was the first patch. It was Castle Nathria. It was the beginning of Shadowlands.
I mean, I don't think the Covenants were that offensive. Like,
Man,
it
at
was
the
one of those,
time,
like,
did it seem like that? Because it felt like we were being offended like every single day, I think.
I mean, it's
like
more
on
like,
Twitch,
why did this exist? But I don't know. The way I see it is like, I just played whatever was the best, and it was what it was, right? Like, I didn't really give a shit about swapping, and I don't even know what half of the Covenants did for my main characters at the time, but it didn't even fucking matter. I just played whatever was best, and it is what it is.
So did we all overreact about Covenants? Is that maybe the
Well,
side
no, I
thing
mean,
of
it's
this?
still like, like why should this happen? Why should this exist? But at the end of the day,
But it didn't
it's
actually
not the end
affect
of the
our
world.
gameplay much at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like,
It did
if
for
you
me.
couldn't change. Well, yeah, maybe for some other
I
people.
had a awful time in patch 8.0 because I was playing Vengeance Demon Hunter and I played Kyrian Vengeance Demon Hunter in Raid, and then I couldn't play Night Fade Demon Hunter for Havoc, for like Havoc M plus or anything like that. So I was just there like playing this awful Covenant outside of whenever I was playing Vengeance, and that sucked.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
they made you pick a Covenant for a very similar reason, as they knew that 80% of people were going to get not the best legendary at the beginning of Legion, but they wanted the feeling of getting the best one. They wanted you to feel that commitment. And I think, I've said this before, but I think they were just wrong on the time. I even think I know if you would have done Covenants in 2010, 2008, I think it would have been like this one of the best things ever and everyone loved it, and why aren't Covenants in the game still and whatever. Like, it was just like a different time thing. I even think it's possible if you do Covenants in Legion, people love it. Like, even not even that long ago. But definitely a huge miss for that. Mythic Plus, a really polarizing seasonal affix. I've learned when talking about this that high key players absolutely hated this because it scaled ridiculously and became the worst part of all of their keys. But if you talk to people who just did weekly keys, it was really fun and they really liked it. It seems to be the general consensus.
Yeah, there's
it
a
was a
class of
scaling issue.
people doing weekly keys that, like, you're doing a 10 because it's the highest level that gives rewards, and 10s are pretty easy for you. And if that was true for you, this seasonal affix was the best seasonal affix they've ever made. Like, it was so fun because it would spawn and it would be like a plus 12 mini bosses just spawned into your dungeon. So like that happening 5 times in a dungeon was pretty fun. And then you would kill it and you would be OP for your next boss fight, and you would just murder a boss or something, or you'd murder a trash bowl, and like that was super fun in the context of weekly keys when you overpowered them. Which a lot of people played the game that way. A lot of people, even in plus 10s, were like in the plus 10 struggle situation, in which case this was not a fun affix for you. But if you were farming plus 10s and your character could do plus 15s, like this was a banger affix. It was a lot of fun. And I did
Yeah,
keys
but
as
at the
both
same
push keys
time-
and that this season, so I hated it in the push keys.
At the same time, for groups that were struggling,
Yeah,
it was a major struggle.
it was
'Cause, like for
awful.
Yeah, like for one, you had to spawn at the right time, which was really rough for pug groups, right? Because like if you had like some dog shit route, or if you just like accidentally pulled something extra, then it's like, oh well, you're just gonna spawn a prideful in the middle of the next pull, and that was completely unintended. And also, if you needed the prideful buff to defeat certain bosses, like if you needed it for Hakar in the other side, and you didn't have it for Hakar, you were just
you
fucked.
were cooked. Yeah, you just couldn't kill it. That's probably bad boss design, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, also Tyrannical was just really bad at the time.
Yeah, that's true. This was the worst Tyrant season, I think. It was one of the worst. I don't know. I want to call this a C tier patch. I don't know about you guys.
Well, we have a few more things to talk about. What do you guys
Okay.
think about Shadowlands dungeons in general? Like, usually every Mythic Pluser hates all their dungeons, then it gets better as the expansion goes on. But I think Shadowlands dungeons have even remained to still be like a mid-dungeon set years later.
Yeah, I think it really sucked at the time, and then we saw Dragonflight, and we were like, wait, never mind, it's not so bad. we learned that Blizzard could make even worse dungeon design.
I like Dragonflight dungeons better than Shadowlands dungeons.
But
has
I mean,
that
it's not about
happened?
the
Has that
dungeons.
happened again in the War Within? War Within dungeons are so
Oh,
bad
absolutely. I mean, it's not the dungeons are bad, it's the dungeon design philosophy. Like, the whole idea of making dungeons super
I just
linear,
love
the
how
whole
this
idea
exactly-
of interrupts, recasting, and like, just mobs chain casting bolts and nonstop damage everywhere. Like, it didn't get that bad in Shadowlands. Shadowlands was just like the cusp of the problems that we have now, and like now the problems are like full blown. It's like Blizzard has gone full, this is how we want dungeons to be designed. So like at the time it was bad, but now it's like, all right, they can do worse.
Also, Castle Nathria. We didn't talk about the raid at all. I think
Banger
Castle,
raid.
Yeah. I don't think it's objective top 3 with Nighthold, but I do think it is objective top 5. I think it would be extremely difficult for anyone who has played these raids and can accurately rate them to say that Castle Nathria would be outside of the top 5. It's way up there.
I actually didn't have it on my top 5. I don't think it's just me too.
What do you have in
thought
your
it was
top
some other
5?
people too. I would have to think about that one, but
Blackrock Foundry, the Blackrock Foundry, Throne of Thunder, and depends on if you're talking. Wait, sorry. When I'm saying top, I'm purely rating like modern WoW raids, so everything from MoP onwards. I rate Classic through Kata totally separately because I think they're like completely unrelatable to the other content. So that's probably where that, because like when you're talking like ICC and Ulduar, it's hard to put it in there, but not having Castle Nathria in a MoP through now list in top 5 would be a significantly different experience, I think, than I've heard. But that would I respect it though.
yeah, for me it was not as great because I didn't like Council of Blood. It was just way too long of a boss, and it was just like way too much downtime. I didn't like Stone Legion, obviously. I mean, nobody likes that boss.
Yeah, that's a
It
terrible
was,
boss.
it
That boss
was really
sucks,
rough
yeah.
prog for us. I thought the Nathrius was just alright. Like, I know everyone always talks about how great it was.
Ooh.
Like, I thought
I like that fight.
P3
That's
was
one of
like
the best fights
amazing,
ever.
right? But like, I don't know, P1 was extremely bad in my opinion. It was just completely like, why does this even exist? And it was a complete lag fiesta. P2
True.
was just kind of whatever. So like, ultimately
P2
it just
is
came
really
down
cool.
to like P3, right? Like, P3 was fucking great, but outside of that, it didn't really
I listened to
shine too much.
Dratnos talk about Amirdrasil on a thing last. We were doing like a tier list of bosses, and he talked about how literally every single part of Fireact was bad, but the last part was so good that it was an S tier boss, and he was right. Sometimes that's just
Yeah.
how bosses work.
It just
Yeah, it
wasn't
depends on
that
the
for me,
type of
'cause,
player
like,
you are.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I also think it depends on your progression too, right? Like,
Mhm.
because we were a later cutting edge guild, and the beginning of the fight was like pretty easy, right? So like, it didn't really mean a whole lot to us. I don't know. It was just like not amazing. Also, reclear and farm of that raid was fucking awful. I didn't like farming Nathria for whatever reason. And
I think
that
Sludge
generally
Fist deserves
affects
to be
my-
mentioned too. Sludge Fist is
Yeah,
like
Sludge Fist was good.
also an all-time great encounter. So
Yeah,
I
it was
think there's
definitely
like
great, but I
two
don't think it was
bosses in
enough
there.
to push it to like, be a top contender just because of like how many bad points there were for that raid specifically.
I would be. This is probably not for this podcast, but I would be interested to hear what 5 raids you have above it. Just
Yeah, I'd have to
for
think about
reference,
that a bit, but yeah.
but that is fine. Okay, so you said Dratnos, you want
I'm thinking C for this. What do you guys think?
Ooh, I actually have a very different take. I have it at A.
Yeah, I was about to say I was
because
gonna
of
have this at A.
Okay.
Why were you gonna have it at C?
Covenants, awful seasonal affix, bad dungeons, Covenants, Conjured Energy, which is a small issue, but it was really annoying and it was stupid, and I hated it every time.
We
they
haven't even
answered
talked about
it.
Torghast at all.
Yeah,
But like
Torghast, massive failure for sure.
The Maw.
It was alright in the beginning.
Ooh, the Maw was bad. He's right. Okay, you've got me down to a B. I forgot about the Maw.
I'm willing to put it at B.
Yeah, so for me, the biggest A is PvP. This was the best season of PvP I've played.
Now,
It was fucking great. Arenas were great. RBGs were great because everyone was trying to do PvP.
I also had a lot of
before.
fun. This is the season I got 2400 because that was what you needed for the 233
Yep.
weppies. Yeah.
And I
So-
thought that was fucking amazing.
do you guys
Yeah.
think it is a coincidence that Venruki said the same thing? And I remember asking him this question as well. Do you find it interesting that the patch where all of the poor PvEers were forced to PvP was the most fun time it was to PvP? Because you were just fucking slaughtering PvEers who didn't want to be there, and that was fun.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm not surprised that is the most fun, situation for people. I bet they
But
quite
also,
like the start of
you're
this
like
season.
a PvEer, I think, primarily, Dratnos. So, like, if
Yeah,
you
but
had
I'm-
fun PvPing, is there merit in Blizzard forcing the hand a little bit into getting people to PvP, and then it turns out you actually kind of enjoy? I know some
The
people
thing is,
hate
like,
it, but
I don't enjoy PvP that much, but I'm good at it when I need to be. Like I can play it okay, and also I have guildies that are good that I can queue with, and so like for me the experience isn't miserable for PvPing. It's like it's one of those things sort of like Island Expeditions where it's like it was fun to do it together, but I wouldn't like to do it every patch. I do some like this patch. There was actually some incentive to do it at the start of the patch.
oh my god.
So I did a decent chunk this patch for like 619 socketed bracers or whatever. But yeah, I think that like within my guild, there's a class of people who are good PvEers that are bad PvPers, and those people would hate it if you made them PvP.
I have
every
a few of
patch.
those too, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what made it so good for me was I could actually get a business slot weapon without having to do the end boss of raid.
Yeah.
Like, that was fucking amazing. Like, bro, imagine just like getting a weapon that was better than the one
You
that
can do that
dropped from
now.
Nefarious. How?
That's you could craft a weapon now. I guess it's not better, but it's like
Well,
I mean
it's
a lot of
not.
people are wearing Ascension on their weapon. That's
Yeah, well, I mean, I think like more recent example right now would be like if you can get a Spy Masters from PvP
true. That would
or
be
something that's
yeah,
better
that would
than
be
Spy Masters because
Mhm.
like like the weapon's kind of whatever. You can just get it from anywhere.
Okay, so are you okay with putting it in B, Dorky?
Yeah, I would say
Still
B is fine. Yeah.
B, but I also think ahead of the beginning
Head
of
of Tides
BFA.
of Vengeance?
Definitely.
All right.
I think objectively the beginning of Shadowlands was better than the beginning of BFA.
Yeah, it was a decent patch.
All right. Chains of Domination. I assume this is the other F tier patch you've been
It's the other F
considering
tier patch.
This is the worst
Yeah.
patch.
Yeah. Torghast got worse somehow. Korthia was horrifying. The raid was not great. It had Painsmith and then it just fell off a cliff. And
The
there
gems were
was
the
Shards of
worst part.
Domination were one of the worst systems ever that featured one of the worst mid-tier nerfs for as well. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like Unholy was Biss, and then like a month into the patch they nerfed it, and then Frost was Biss, or Blood for tanks or whatever was Biss, but you'd already invested your, shadowy dollars or whatever into the set. That was like it didn't matter for very many
Domination
guilds, but it
shards.
was so annoying.
Yeah, domination shards were a huge problem, and
The
and
Korthia grind. Do you guys remember grinding Sakis in Korthia?
Yeah, yeah. That was miserable, man.
and then I
fucking
think there's
hated
another
this patch.
element of this because how much you and your friends are playing WoW. Like we all talked about this before. I asked you guys on a patch or a podcast. I was like, "Would you guys play WoW without your friends?" And you both immediately said no, right?
Yeah.
And so when your friends are not playing WoW, it objectively makes WoW less fun for you. That is another part of this patch. And a lot of that it had to do with how bad this patch was for sure, but also all the lawsuit stuff was happening at Blizzard. That was like if you were ever on twitter.com, that was it still called Twitter then? Random
Yeah,
thought?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
X
okay,
was,
so
like,
you're on
giant problem.
Twitter. You're
Yeah.
on Twitter and it's just like perma WoW dooming. You could not escape WoW dooming. Also, everyone was like, all right, let's try this other game. So all your friends are like trying Final Fantasy. A lot of people tried Final Fantasy.
That was the Final
then.
Fantasy. Dude, it was literally it was this patch where it was what was their expansion?
Shadowbringers.
Shadow Walker or
Shadowbringers,
whatever.
yeah.
Shadowbringers didn't come out in this patch. It came out earlier. It actually came out very close to Shadowlands, I believe, which is funny. Shadowbringer, Shadowlands. But this was the patch when everyone went and played it for sure. And that was another thing. So like, it was just the game was dead. Also, I believe the seasonal affix was like fine, right? Tormented, was that the?
Yeah,
it was like
whatever.
super whatever, right? Didn't make your experience horrible, but also wasn't good.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing I
horrible
will
patch.
say that was a huge W for me. This was when we first competed in MDI, and that was a great experience. But that's just like my personal.
Yeah,
This was you guys had that,
BFA got points for
weekend
me.
where you got into the lower bracket, right? You
No,
knocked
we
Echo to the lower
completely-
bracket, and then
Yeah,
you
we
beat him
stomped
again in
our
the
cup.
finals. Yeah.
Yeah, we literally won every single match.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah,
That was,
and that was, like,
for
our
a
first
second,
time
I thought you guys were
competing,
like really good, and then that was it just turned out that was a fluke.
too.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Everyone was like, "Holy shit!" Like this team that's never showed up before is actually just like fucking shitting on Echo.
Yeah.
That
That was
a good time.
crazy. Okay.
Oh,
Eternity's
I'm muted.
End.
I'm muted. Sorry. I was this also the patch when did I say JPC the candle holder thing?
That was season 1.
Was it season 1?
Yeah.
When
Season
I
1
was like
TGP.
when I was like Echo's gonna beat everyone because the other players, I said the other players can't hold a candle to
candle,
Echo's
yes,
players,
yes.
so then Dorki named his team the Candle Holders or something.
Candle holder, candle bearer, or something like that.
I was
That's
right,
good.
by the way. I know people got mad, but all good. Okay, the third patch.
Eternity's End. Sepulcher of the First Ones, the hardest raid they ever made. Probably
That was
still.
alright.
It had 5 absolutely brutally difficult bosses.
I think it was harder than Nerebar Palace only because it had more fights.
Yes. Yeah. The
but, like-
quantity, the quality was similar. The quantity was more.
Yeah, Nerebar Palace certainly as difficult, like per boss you're fighting.
Dude, even the early bosses were kind of insane.
Yeah, like the sausage and what is the other one? I want to say
The Hoover.
Zyronic.
Zymox.
I'm trying to
Oh,
say
Zymox.
Zyronic,
Zymox.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Zymox. That boss was kind of tough. The first
Yeah.
boss was so bad.
The first boss had to get
boss was
nerfed.
pretty hard.
The first boss had to take a 50% nerf to its intermission damage before it was killed on Mythic, by the way. That was the first day it was being pulled.
It probably could have been killed with that version, but it should, for a first boss, it
Yeah.
should have been.
was crazy.
Should have been nerfed for sure. I remember we were doing like a bunch of millions of splits or whatever, and then
Yeah.
I watched the first guild go in there and get absolutely slaughtered.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit, that is insane. And then we were just thinking before the raid, dude, there's no way they're gonna tune this for double legendaries, right? And then, well, that was fun. So yeah, Sepulcher. Would you say Sepulcher is a L or a W for the patch?
I would
So,
say L.
It's
most
for you
players.
because not for like the community hates Sepulcher.
Yeah.
Anduin actually committed mass genocide on guilds. Like
It
it
did.
killed so many guilds.
For me, Sepulcher was a W. It was a huge W for me personally, but
Yeah, same.
I would never there have been patches since that have had raids that have been W's for me and for other people, and they should definitely do those instead of doing more Sepulchers. Like,
Yeah, that makes
But-
sense.
God, I loved Halandris. I loved Anduin. I loved Raglan. That fight
Yeah,
was
Raglan's
so
an incredible,
sick.
incredible boss.
And I like the jailer. I'm gonna say it. I like that fight. That was a good fight. I had a lot of fun on it. It was sick. It was epic. The music was boggers. It was fun. That fight was great. You could trick it into not healing going into P4. That was good. I don't know why more people didn't do that. That was really good.
How did you
Yeah.
guys feel about the zone?
Zereth Mortis, I love Zereth Mortis. I actually thought it was it had a weird aesthetic, and I think there was some fatigue for the kind of washed out color scheme because it was sort of similar to Korthia in that way. And I think there was some stylistic fatigue with it. I really liked how it had a lot of shit you could do and no power. Like there was 40 mounts you could make with the protoform synthesizer, and there was like this
From
language.
there.
you could learn. No, you didn't even need to do it for sockets. You could
There was something
I
we
don't
had to
think.
do it for. I can't remember what, but I remember
There was
having to
some
do it.
power in the zone. It was very minimal.
Maybe sockets.
Though. Very
Maybe it was
minimal.
sockets then, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I don't remember what it
I
was,
just
I just
remember
remember
not
it.
having any. Like I remember there were like all the entire protoform synthesis system was all optional. It was just cosmetics, and it was like it was a huge system, and it was sick. I thought that zone was great. I like how they've moved a lot of those zones in that direction since then. I think this was a huge step in a good direction compared to the core Thea grind. I know there are people that are like, well, and I will say the one thing that felt weird that has sort of continued, and I think really started with this patch, is the phenomenon of the patch comes out, and the week that the patch comes out is the least good week to play WoW. Like, there's
good
all
point.
this important stuff is time gated, and there's good reasons for that. There's good reasons that they don't want us to spend 16 hours a day grinding power in a week that the raid's not out. But this was the patch where that what became true. This was the patch where it's like I remember on Friday of the patch week being like, I'm done. I'm logging out of WoW on the week of a WoW patch, and I still find that to be dissonant internally.
Yeah. So Xerath Mortis to W. Also think that's one thing that's really interesting about this patch is we forgot to mention something about Chains of Domination. It's also the patch where they allowed you to choose Covenants again. Although I don't think you would
It was
add...
in the 1.1.5 they did this in Chains, yeah.
Correct.
So.
They did this in Chains. But almost no one actually attributes that change to 9.1.5 because everyone stopped playing the game. A lot of people just logged back in on 9.2 or 8.2, whatever, and that was it for them. Like it was like, oh, this is a Eternity's End change, and you could attribute that. So my question: would you attribute that to this patch, or would you attribute it to Sanctum, or whatever it's called, Chains?
I don't know. I don't want to.
Or do you even care? Do you even give Blizzard a plus for fixing something that should have never been like that in the first place?
I don't give them points for fixing it so late. Yeah. I mean, obviously it was good. It was better that they did that than they didn't. But I don't want to move Chains of Domination up. But I also don't want to credit it to Eternity's End. So
yeah,
I don't know where that leaves us.
Also, I would almost give them credit for it if it wasn't for, and I know you remember what I'm talking about, the verbiage they used when they changed it. That one sentence, it's where it's like,
people enjoyed experiencing Shadowlands the first time with Covenants, but now it's time for, and it's like, no, we didn't.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's completely wrong. Yeah, they knew it too, but they had to like save face.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care too much about whatever PR speak gets put. So one of my life philosophies is I try not to listen too hard to how like sincere people's apologies or whatever sound, because you just are incentivizing people to be better at deceiving you if you care too much about that kind of stuff. But
yeah. Also, it doesn't. Yeah,
it's because it just literally doesn't matter. Like I care about the action rather than how pretty the words they could put around it.
Okay,
are.
I have two things I want to bring up. So number one, Encrypted was this patch,
and
which is
Shrouded.
Yeah, I was about to say
Faded.
That's what I wanted to bring up. Should we
Season 4?
include Faded in the, I mean, there is no Faded patch to talk about, so which is fair too. I don't think we should compare a Faded patch to the rest of these because that's not what it's supposed to be.
I mean, I feel like Faded patch is like pretty distinct.
Yeah,
I would say just like,
how can you compare it to all these other patches with like full raids and
I kind of want to just ignore all the 0.5 stuff
and hundreds of people working on them instead of
I mean,
3. I feel like it's totally different.
Well, the way I see it is I just find it really hard to rank this WoW including both, because then like I'm like, for me that means like this patch was both extremely good and extremely bad. Like,
dude, that's really interesting.
Really good.
I still, as much as I am not a fan of Faded, and I hope they don't do it in this expansion, I still don't think Faded made the end of these expansions worse. Like the alternative was just a longer
for me. I mean, I had a ton of good time with Faded. I thought that Faded was like way better than season 3.
You thought, that's so interesting.
I mean, Faded M Plus was sick, right? Shrouded Keys.
Great.
I mean, it was also one of the best dungeon sets. Like, it was just an awesome dungeon set, and they had they had, it was nice. Also, kind of the same classes were really broken. Yeah, Gearing was nice. They had It didn't have encrypted though, but enshrouded was actually also a very good one. But I think encrypted was the best. I really think encrypted was the best seasonal. That was so fun.
I think that Awakened was the best seasonal, and then I would put Reaping and Encrypted as like a tie for second for different reasons. But Encrypted was definitely sick.
That's interesting. I like played Unholy Decay and Reaping season. Maybe it's just that like Reaping is just so much more basic, which isn't a bad thing, than Encrypted. But I just think Encrypted is just like so much smarter. But I guess the way you play them, that doesn't really matter. Okay, so we don't. I mean, we literally don't have a thing for the faded patches, so all we can do is talk. I think what we do is we rank season 3. We talk about season 4. Maybe talk about where it would be. Maybe, but I also think ranking a faded patch among regular patches is insane. Like it's like a maybe like a 6th or a 10th of the amount of things, except for literally Mythic Plus, right? Like every other area of the game is just the same. There's nothing new. So I think comparing that to a patch where they're giving you a bunch of new content that's just like you're rating two different things. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's just like how your characters played and how the gear progression was. You know, just like that to me was like a huge part. Like basically how it played. And to me, season 4 played extremely well.
I mean, the fact that it was just like unlimited catalyst, unlimited upgrades was so fun as well.
And a pretty not great class balance. Well, actually, it had decent. The tanks were you can only play one of them. But there
DPS
was like
were kind of broken. Like
DPS,
what Serve, Destro were just super.
Season
broken.
3 was way worse than season 4 for DPS. For season 4, you could play like 5 different specs. It was like Fire Mage, or it was like a spec of Mage. I don't remember if it was Fire. It was like Mage, Rogue, Windwalker, Survival Hunter, Destrolock, and like one other thing that were all like playable.
Yeah, Frosty Kill was pretty good too.
Yeah. Okay, so season 3 though. So season 3. It's better than season 2, so that would put it in at least a C. I'm just doing this in my head right now. It is significantly worse than the end of BFA. Yep. It is worse than Legion. It is worse than season 3 BFA, I think. Is it better? Is the end of Shadowlands better than the beginning of Shadowlands?
I think so. I had more fun at the end of Shadowlands than the start.
Well, okay, so yeah, that's the thing. Like season 3 for me would be a C. Faded would be an A.
Yeah, we're not doing Faded with this, but
okay. And if we want to include it, then I guess we would put it B. But I'm leaning towards C.
I would want to put this in B.
I'm liking B, but below the beginning of Shadowlands, in my opinion. But
okay, above or below Tides of Vengeance? I guess we should go below because Dorki wants it in C.
That makes sense,
I don't. I was just so fatigued by this game at this point. Just like.
Yeah,
it was just too much. Like Sepulchre was just way too much. Fucking all the things from before were way too much. Season 2 and I felt like it was at this point.
Our entire comment section is going to put Eternity's End in fucking F. Like if your guild had a casualty to Anduin, this shit's going to the.
And again, I'm not trying to do a tier list for
other people. Yeah.
For other people, yeah. In fact, there's definitely parts of me that wants this above B for me personally, because like. I had a lot of great times in this patch.
Yeah, I did too.
I think that's completely fair.
And then we'll just mention Faded. The first time we got Faded,
Poggers.
Very
Excellent.
good. Yeah, very good.
Like with a very small amount of resources, they made a very fun season. They experimented with a lot of cool shit, like an upgrade system, like a new dungeon pool rotation. They made a great seasonal affix, and they did the raid recycling. I think Faded raids weren't good even the first time. They had weird affixes, and also just I think the rotating raids was not good. But the Faded M Plus side was sick. They cooked and they delivered, and it was great. Okay, patch 9.10.0 Dragonflight launches. We've got there's talents in dragon riding and stuff, which were, I guess. If we thought about covenants and legendaries and stuff, talents, I guess we should think about the talents a little bit?
I think we can because I think talents were in a different state for every part of this expansion.
Yeah.
So you can kind of talk about. I mean, talents would become an increasingly better thing as time went on for sure. They were certainly the most problematic when they were first released. Dragon riding was a huge W for sure. Like that, I still think that's probably the best thing that Dragonflight gave us was just what flying is now in the game, and I guess in this upcoming patch, what driving will be, because I think that's an extension of dragon riding just on the ground.
It is to ground mounts what dragon riding was to flying mounts, right?
Yeah, I actually just forgot. I forgot about that until I just brought it up, and that's gonna be so fucking cool,
dude. We're gonna drive around, so it's gonna be so fun.
Just driving. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Dragonflight, I thought the zones were awesome. This is kind of an all expansion thing, but like I just thought the zones were really, really cool. Also a Shadowlands thing. I think there's zones outside of Maldraxxus. I think the zones were like really fucking thematic and amazing. Vault of the Incarnates, not great on Mythic. On Heroic, I actually, which is most people's opinion, again, that doesn't have to be what we rate it, but I think Heroic Razageth was actually one of the like best heroic bosses ever, similar to Denathrius as well.
I thought it was like, a banger,
all-time great. Mythic was a horrible boss. Broodkeeper wasn't great. Dathia wasn't great. A lot of the beginning of the raid. This is the introduction of very rare gear for the first time, and I think probably the most problematic very rare gear ever was. I think very rare has stumbled into a spot that's not super aggressive. But like this patch, it was like if you just didn't have these items, your character was bad, which was kind of I think what they were going for, but like people just didn't like it. Thundering. Thundering was some shit for sure.
It was pretty bad. I don't think it was as egregiously bad as like Beguiling, but it was kind of more offensive because it was so underwhelming. And it was like, I don't know.
It's also offensive because it killed seasonals.
Yeah. Yes, this did all the great things we talked about in our previous seasonals. We never got again, and I think somewhat reasonably because this seasonal led to so much like whining that they removed it. Which I don't know. I actually do think it, especially if they do good like updates or changes to Xalatath affixes expansion to expansion. I'm kind of fine with expansional affixes rather than seasonal affixes if that's where we're at now.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But it was definitely, there was a couple of patches of Dragonflight where it kind of, you felt the absence of a good seasonal. Yeah. And then Dorki, like you said, the dungeon pool here represented, for me, I like these better than Shadowlands dungeons, but it definitely did represent a further move towards the overloading of trash mechanics of dungeons.
The beginning of the end, yeah.
I can't rate this patch. The end boss of this patch was nerfed and killed while I was asleep, and I cannot objectively rate anything else because that is such a negative stain on all of this that I hate I don't even like thinking about this patch.
Okay.
But this was an F for you.
I'll just come. Bro, that was.
You're recusing yourself?
I'm recusing. I will never not think about that. That was one of the worst experiences of my life. Yep.
Dorki, where you. I feel like our C tier is empty and is calling for a patch. I don't know about you.
I mean, I would lean towards B. Like personally, I would have put this above Eternity's End.
Okay.
And I would have wanted Eternity's End to be C.
You want that in C still, yeah?
Yeah. So
I definitely don't. I'm happy to put this here. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like it was like not that offensive of a patch, but it was also like not an amazing patch. It had a lot of the early problems of the talent tree. Like the talent tree was just unfinished and.
Sorry, continue.
Oh, I was gonna say, Dragon
Riding.
No,
you go. No, you go.
No, you go.
Dragon Riding was just whatever. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I mean, I think Dragon Riding fucking owns, but
this was before they invented having circles you could fly through for random small rewards, and that has improved my Dragon. Dude, oh my god, Mop Remix flying through bronze circles. Oh my god. What a time to be
Beginning
alive.
of this expansion, flying for the little baby crests and stuff?
Well, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's an exploit.
Yeah, the waterfall?
Yeah.
What the hell?
I parked a non-trivial amount of characters for a non-trivial amount of hours there.
Wait, so what does it do?
There's a It's like, you remember in Valdrakken how there were a couple of those orbs that kept hyper spawning because they were on the border between Valdrakken and Thaldraszus? There is a spawn for one of the resonance orbs whenever they are in Isle of Dorn, which is 1 out of 4 days. There's a spawn that is just in front of this waterfall that is right on the borderline between Dornogal and the Isle of Dorn zone. And so if you fly through it, or if you park a character there with steady flying turned on, you can get, if you're on a populated enough shard, you can get like 30 weathered crests a minute from just sitting there. If you're not on a populated shard, toggle war mode, and that often will get you onto a more populated one as well.
Dranos is very experienced with doing this.
Or so I've heard. Or so I've heard.
Or so you've heard, yeah.
Nice.
Also, I think it's fascinating that at the beginning of Dragonflight, we haven't really, there's way less to talk about than all the things, because like this was the first expansion after the borrowed power ones.
Yes.
Yeah, we
like
just
this
didn't get a whole lot.
Every
Like,
time we
there's less
talked
in the patches.
Yeah,
right?
like it was the rebuilding expansion. Like when we're talking about those other ones, it's like, and that's when this and this and this and then this came out. And Dragonflight, it was like, it's like the talent things that we still have now, and dragon riding, which we still have now, right? It's just like it's almost like you're talking about the current game or the beginning of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Like, dragon riding is cool and all, but it's just like it's not defining enough of a feature that like it changes.
That's
my
fair.
Gameplay
I am
a
also
whole
not.
lot.
I'm not really crediting it dragon riding, because also dragon riding is really not a patch feature. It doesn't change patch to patch. Like it's
Yeah.
True.
yeah. Okay,
It was just whatever.
Embers of Neltharion. So this raid was one of those raids where I think it was just objectively a pretty good raid.
Yeah, Aber's good.
Like, I think there were some ways where this is like the anti-sepulcher, where it was worse for me than it was for the general public, because like it was over fast for me and there weren't a lot of hard fights, and there was also Skarn, which was obviously like a big stain on this tier. But I think for like the overwhelming majority of the player base, which I guess we're not doing this tier list on, but like clearly this was a great raid for that.
Yeah,
They
that's
introduced
neat.
the upgrade system in this patch, which was an all-time banger thing to be added. Was the
Well,
like,
and it was
quests.
also the first time they added it, which I agree it is a banger, but it's the first time they added it, and it was way more like player friendly. Like
Yes.
there's a developer side of the crest system where it's like, okay, like there's an optimal amount of like week on week gain you get. In this patch, they got that totally wrong, and they just gave you fucking everything immediately. So it was
Well, you
pretty
say
fun.
totally wrong, bro. Like, I feel like we're starting to get to the opposite end now, where
we're at the total opposite end now. Yeah.
where players are starting to feel the effects of them trying to extend this track. Because like, there's been a lot of discourse recently about myth track and how hard it is to gear your alts, and people are just like
Oh yeah.
not happy with the current system. And
I think it's possible you see a change after this patch, very similar that you saw after that patch, where they realized they were too far in one direction and they change it, hopefully.
yeah,
The thing is-
I hope so.
I do believe that the upgrade system is in a good place right now for main characters for the first month of a patch, but
Yep.
they really need to come up with some automatic way to make it less shitty for alts and less shitty for people returning to the game later in a patch, and also less shitty for people that just don't cap out at mythic content or at plus 10s and cap out lower than that. It's fine if those people have a lot of meaningful upgrades that they can be chasing in the first month of a patch, but I think it sucks now that all of the upgrades past that are gated behind such brutally difficult content for them, and are like the amount of gilded crests you get feels so bad as well from that at this point in the patch. So I think that they could honestly keep the first month of War Within gearing as it is right now, but buff, like if there was a good automatic buffing system for it as the patch went later, that's what I think they need more than like making it more generous baseline. But okay, back to Embers of Neltharion. Bank error in players' favor. It was the Monopoly card we
Yep.
drew. And then dungeons. So Aug-Evoker got added and broke the Mythic Plus metagame in the 0.5 patch, which I guess we've kind of haven't been counting 0.5 patches as...
Oh, we've counted mega dungeons. We've counted.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I think we've counted them.
I think it's fair to count that stuff for sure.
I mean, yeah, then this season got totally murdered by God Comp and Aug-Evoker for M+.
And if you didn't do M+, none of that mattered at all. But yeah, but that was a pretty big deal for that. I mean, that was actually like, I can't remember something that was talked about every single stream than that. Like that was just like, I mean, people wanted, like, unironically were petitioning to delete that spec and thought Blizzard would do it. Like they were so
Dude,
mad.
there's actually a lot less talk about AUG nowadays. I don't really hear
It's not OP.
AUG complaints. I mean, it's still like, you know,
The
It's
best
OP
side.
only in
the
high
fact where-
keys. Yeah.
but people still feel it's mandatory. Like that's like,
But
in
only
high keys
now.
only. And only in
Yeah.
high keys, yeah.
well, I mean, even before,
Because-
like, I don't know. Like, I don't
In
feel
Ember,
AUG
like
was
when it
mandatory
first
before.
came out in X.5, it was OP for everybody in every content. And now
Correct.
they've
Yeah, they invited AUG evokers in every single key level. Right now, if you go into a key under 10, you could find infinite groups that are just going to invite an AUG just like any other class, right? It's not like it was when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, either way, I
Okay.
mean, the dungeon pool just like made it actually fun to do M+ regardless of AUG or God.
That's true.
Comp or
This had the
whatever.
good Shadowlands, or the good the better Dragonflight dungeons were in this season, right? Like
Yeah, and also
I guess
had
there were some good ones in-
Freehold. And,
I did a bunch of Guardian keys this
no, Power
season. That
Zone
was,
also.
dude, Guardian was so
Yeah, it was
fun to
pretty
play
fun.
this patch. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was actually sick.
Yeah, I did title push on Guardian on that season. It was a good time.
Yeah, I think this was a good patch. I also loved the upgrading system at this time. Like,
Yeah.
easy gearing is always a fucking plus for me. So this is an A.
Is this enough to go into S tier,
Oh.
or is this an A tier?
Oh,
I want to think. I'm thinking it's an A tier patch.
was
I don't know.
any
Yeah, I'm
part of
thinking that too.
Dragonflight as good as any part of Legion for you?
maybe season 3, but we'll leave that for later.
I'm down with A. I'm down with
Okay.
A for the second season
Yeah.
of Dragonflight.
All right, Guardians of the Dream comes out. Amir Drasil, The Dream's Hope. Banger raid for me, personally. I loved Tindril and Fireack Prague, personally. I respect that there were a huge host of issues created by that for the rest. And again, sort of like the upgrade system, a lot of this needs to be, things that get fixed much faster than they do currently. And but for me personally, sort of like Sepulchre, I had a blast against those encounters. The Mythic Plus that season also was.
It was
What were
really
the
good.
season 3 dungeons? It was all Dragonflight, was it?
No, that was season 4. Season 3 was Rise, Fall,
Oh, Rise, Fall, and then
Regressed?
6 old, right?
I think.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't-
Throne of Tides.
It wasn't
Throne of
6
Tides was
old.
season-
It wasn't 6 old, was it?
4 old and 2. Wait, it might be 6 old. You're right.
Dragonflight season 3 dungeons. Dragonflight season 3 Mythic Plus guide. Yeah, Rise, Fall, and then 6 returning. It was Waycrest, Atal,
interesting.
Darkheart, Blackrook, Everbloom, Throne of the Tides.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
okay. I
that
did
was a
title
good
push as
season.
AUG this season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
was
was fun. It was a fun
I
season push.
played I played 2 months of Mythic Plus in this season. Like that's
Okay.
an all time. That's not an all time high, but that is an all time
Yeah.
high of live keys. When even in BFA, I did a shitload of Mythic Plus, but it was all in the tournament realm. I didn't do any live keys ever. I actually did 2 months of live keys. I'd never done that before, so that was
I've actually
really
heard
really
a lot
fun.
of people say that. Like, that was also their most played M+. This was actually some of the most played M+.
dude. Havoc was so fun.
Oh yeah, they had some.
my
dude,
god,
class design in general peaked for a lot of specs here. I think there was some real fun stuff you could be doing on a lot of these different classes and specs.
Yeah, the upgrade
Yeah, that
system was
shit
pretty
owned.
solid too.
Upgrade system, yeah, they nerfed it, but it was still good. It still felt good.
I'm not going to recuse myself from voting this, but I will say that I really liked Amir Drasil even while losing that race in that patch. But upon light of recent information, it is hard for me to think about Amir Drasil and have any kind of positive feelings. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So it's an F.
No, I fucking
He's
love
just
Mythic
recusing
Plus.
himself again?
I'm not recusing myself. I'm just pointing. We were talking about Amir Drasil before we started about Mythic Plus, and I just want to say that I absolutely loved that raid until recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What else was there? Any other I guess talent trees kept getting better, but it's gonna be kind of hard to
yeah,
in
they
a short
did
amount of
improve that
time.
over time. Yeah.
parse that per season. We're not including Faded here. We'll talk about that after. I think we're.
Yeah.
Where do you guys think?
Is this S or A?
I don't know if it's S. I feel like it's top of A, but I don't know. Maybe
I feel
like
like
that.
Amir
It's pretty-
Drasil is probably better than like every raid in Legion besides Nighthold.
Okay.
And that, like, I find it hard to believe that like both Tomb and Argus were better than this patch. But it's also like so fucking long distance time in between those two things that like what are you even like you're just making shit up. Like I don't know. What do you guys think?
So
Yeah,
Dorki
there's
wants
also,
top
like,
of
how
A.
the game played, and I don't know. I felt like the game was more fun to play back then. Because like I'm looking at this, and like Argus is definitely better, and Argus is the bottom of S. But
Argus should not be below
Yeah.
Tomb. I just think we ordered that wrong, but
yeah, I also think
Oh,
so.
okay. Whoop.
it doesn't really matter. But yeah, let's put an A. Fuck it. Top of A, better
Top
than
of A.
season 2.
Bang.
Woo!
All right. Then we have patch 11.0, The War Within.
What do you guys think about this raid?
I quite liked progression this tier. But personally, there were a few problems. Like every boss had things about it that kind of sucked for me, but like I still quite liked Prague. So I don't know. This raid definitely isn't in my top 10. I don't think. Although there are fights and parts of fights that I liked. Like I really liked Ansarek Phase 3. I really liked Kaiveza, but then it was one of those bosses that got nerfed in such a way that it was impossible for us to kill it, and then it was nerfed, and then it was impossible for us not to kill it. And it's like it's
I
never
remember
going to be
watching you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm never going to have a super fond memory of any boss that happened to for me. Brood Twister, I actually quite liked progression on that encounter. God, I hate it for farm. Holy, what an awful
Holy,
farm fight.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like,
been pretty decent farm for
oh my god.
us.
I just like if you're swapping in somebody, the amount of like weak aura logistics on that fight, especially dude, Guild's reaching that
like
boss
just people
now.
who haven't done it at all.
It's so it reminds me of Fire Rack intermission like macro setup horrors.
Yeah.
Silken Court I also thought was not a particularly fun mythic encounter. It was, it's kind of fine. It was
Very
it's just-
different. They
it's a-
literally
yeah.
they literally made a Final Fantasy fight in WoW. That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. Every
It's-
Final Fantasy fight plays like Silken Court.
It
and
was
then
a banger
yeah,
heroic boss though.
there was a banger heroic boss. I will give you that. So I don't know. I'm I guess medium on this raid. Yeah.
What about you,
Yeah,
Dorki?
I'm kind of.
I love that it's getting nerfed every week. I love the threads thing.
I have mixed feelings about the threads thing. I really like the first 4 bosses being puggable. Like I feel like that's such a fucking W. Like having puggable mythic
Yeah.
bosses is like so good for the community, especially for people who are just trying to have something to do outside of AOTC. Because like for a lot of players, you kind of just do AOTC and then you're done, right? It's like what the fuck do you do in the game afterwards? Like there's nothing to do. But having those 4 bosses actually being doable is like so good,
Especially
for-
with the vault. Yeah, but I
especially
wonder
for the vaults.
that's also a problem though. Like the first 4 bosses being that easy is also half of the Brood Twister problem, which I find interesting. And that has led me to come to this is kind of a separate conversation, but it's led me to come to the conclusion that you actually need more than 8 bosses in a raid. Because I agree with you that the first 4 bosses difficulty is not that bad, and it's also historically pretty close to the clear time and pull count for most first 4 bosses in most raids. But Brood Twister still existed, and Brood Twister's not super far off from where maybe like a 7th boss or a 6th boss should be. But it's just that there were just no 2 bosses in between Rashanan and Brood Twister. That's usually been my take.
it's
But I
really
agree with
fucking
you with the
weird.
first 4 boss thing.
That's why I really wish we had at when we were talking about the BRD thing, and I was like cooking on how like if they had like a 0.5 patch where you just had something that was like in between that you can do, because like just having that is so big, and I don't know how you can do it without this whole issue of you just run into a massive wall when you hit Brood Twister. But yeah, like
You need more bosses. That's my solution. Like there's literally room to create 2 linear difficulty bosses in between Rashanan and Brood Twister, and that would have solved so many problems.
If they just plopped an opulence in there, wowee, what a raid. That would be
Yeah.
so good.
Wowie.
but,
Wow.
progression was alright. I thought it was like kind of fun, but I do think progression was a little bit too long. It
I think
was,
the upgrade system being a little bit not generous enough is definitely a point against this season as well.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fucking brutal because I mean, I think a lot of guilds are like actually struggling with this issue where you run to fucking Silken Court wall. I mean, there's just been multiple walls for guilds this season.
Well, there's another problem. Silken Cord is now harder than Ansarek. So the bit now is that everyone's doing the extending thing, because once you kill Silken Cord, it's like Ansarek is.
Wasn't
Well,
there a
I've
guild
heard.
that like
This is what
straight
I've
up
heard.
skipped that? I remember seeing like a screenshot of like people were
Someone
that were
skipping
sussing
Silken?
out. Yeah, people were sussing that out.
Kind of makes sense. I think it's also a really hard WoW fight because it's a very unique WoW fight. There are not a lot of WoW fights that you've done that would make you good at Silken Court. It's actually a very different way of learning.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, like overall, this season has been really weird because it's not finished yet. But I already feel like it's been finished. Like just the idea of there being 3 months left of the season just doesn't seem right to me. Because like I'm usually someone who plays until the end of the season, and I know most other players like they play for the first few months and they're done. I'm not that kind of guy, but like this time I'm actually just like it's been a couple months and I'm ready.
Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of people as well. So
I
is
also
that, is, that
just,
a,
like-
is that a negative thing on the patch, or do you think that's just times are a changing kind of shit? You know what I mean?
I don't know. That's what like that's one of those things where like I'll have to.
We're in the
think about
middle
in
of it.
retrospect. Yeah, like
You
we're in
know?
the middle of it. Yeah, we'll have to
Like
see,
all these
when.
other things on this list have happened. We are currently happening in this one, right? So maybe
Yeah.
we shouldn't even rank this one. Like actually, just for fun, where the fuck would you guys rank this? How could you rank this? Like we're here. Like I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll say I've been having a lot of fun this season. It's just I'm ready done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ready to move on.
I
Would
think
you-
it's probably between. It's either B or A. I think.
Yeah, like would you call it S? No.
No.
Would you call it
No.
F? No.
No.
Would you call it C? Probably
No.
no. So yeah, it's like it's A or B. It's just I mean that could swing a lot based on who you are, and that also could swing a lot in 2 months. By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
100%. Yeah, like
so,
2 months, I
like-
could just be like I'm.
I
done
do
with this
think
shit,
the
man.
hero talents have gone really well compared to what I was sort of thinking they were going to be. Like,
Oh,
they're
interesting.
cool. They've been getting good tuning. There's a lot of relatively fun gameplay that some of them
Yeah.
offer. Some specs kind of you have 2 sucky ones, and that is still sucky. And but like a lot of specs, there's a lot of fun ones. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I maybe what I was hoping with hero talents is maybe like not possible, but it was make it so like every class could realistically play both. But I don't know why I thought that would ever be possible. Like that's nowhere close to true right now, right? Like maybe that's a goal for like end of expansion, or maybe they don't even care about that. They just want to. I don't know, but who knows? I'd be willing. I'm okay with not ranking this, but I'm also okay with putting it at like end of A or future proofing it for when we're super bored 2 months from now and putting it at the top of B instead. I don't know. Was the beginning of this expansion better than the beginning of Shadowlands for you?
Yeah.
Okay,
It wasn't
so
It's weird though, because like this patch, or I guess this expansion, feels like it's kind of fallen off really quick, even though it's like the first patch of the expansion. Because you know how like normally the first patch of an expansion, people are playing for like a long time, right? But it feels like another Dragonflight patch. It feels like things have already died down, and it's the beginning of the expansion still.
beginning of the World Soul Saga. Are you not tied into the
True.
lore? Xalatath is doing shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess actually that's another point too.
That was a
Like,
good.
that is-
yeah.
that
The story's
something-
good.
Yeah, because I mean, like we don't talk about that. I mean, I guess it's not that relevant to.
That's because we don't
at
care.
least.
I don't
Yeah,
care. Travis
that's
probably
because we
cares.
don't
I care. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that was supposed to be a major W, right? Like people have been very happy about.
It is a
the
major W, I
direction
think,
of-
right?
Yeah, of like the narrative and just like
The first
whole-
2
the-
weeks, that's all I heard was like this shit fucking owns for the first time in a long time. So that is that
and
true,
the, and the
Dranos?
zones are actually
the
amazing.
story's good.
The-
Lore observer.
Yeah. I like it.
yeah,
I think
these
it's,
zones are also easily some of the best they've ever made.
I think that some
True.
of the so the thing about the story is I think the story was more maligned than it deserved to be in Dragonflight. I think Dragonflight, the macro story told there was definitely a little bit kind of campy and cheesy, and also didn't really go anywhere. And but I think a lot of the like micro stories told through the like little 5 quest chains or whatever in the zones were sick in Dragonflight as
I mean,
well.
it's just the narrative sucked.
There was
yeah,
all-
but the grand narrative of War Within is definitely much more like mysterious and has more compelling villains and heroes and more Warcraft history to it as well. So
It's a lot more
you
show
can
too instead of tell.
You can feel that Metzen is back on that for sure.
There was also like some quests this expansion, like the one where the old guy in like the main zone. Do you guys know what side quest I'm talking about? Where he like was wanted to spend his last days before he was decommissioned, and like I know I like did that quest. I'm like, damn, that was sad. And like some people in my chat were like, I had that experience with like my grandparents and shit, basically, and it's like, oh damn, for you that must have been fucking real. So it just felt very inspired, like it felt like they really cared about it.
Yeah,
I'm okay with A. Let's fucking rank it. Put it right up.
Put it at the bottom of A.
Put it fucking in there.
Bang! We have done it. We've made our tier list.
Is this our longest podcast ever?
It's definitely up there. I think one thing that we've learned is that if you give us a tier list, we're gonna yap for a long ass time.
That's what makes tier lists great.
Tier lists are amazing content. Yeah,
that's right. That's dude. I was thinking of making a video just in defense of tier lists. Dude, tier lists get shit on so much, but
yeah.
Such...
Well, I don't know. People get mad about tier lists when people take them and just like make every decision off of them, and they like blame tier lists existing for people acting like that, as opposed to it just being the other way around. But what tier lists are great at is if it's about something interesting, it just gives you an opportunity to talk about something that you find interesting, and that is what all the content is. I'll give a perfect example of that. I watched a video, and I actually encourage all of you guys to listen to this if you are anything like me. It was a tier list made by an EMT, and he was tier listing the like different types of calls he gets and how hard like they are to deal with. Like the one at the top, he'd be like, oh, dude, like adult CPR, I sleep. That's my fucking shit. Bread and butter, easy as fuck. And then like all the way down to like the craziest shit you could imagine. And like the hardest one was like time to fucking lock in. Like this is crazy shit. And it was an hour long, and it was probably the best YouTube video I've seen in a month. And it was just someone talking about something they really care about. And tier lists are an excellent like platform for that.
Yeah, I actually talk about that all the time. I love watching tier lists, like tier list of best exercises, like tier list of best tricep exercises. There's Jeff Nippert. He makes those types of videos, and
he
just talks about like why exactly each exercise is like good for the triceps, and or there's like tier list of. Man, we've had this discussion before, but well, I used to care a lot about the gym, but I don't give a shit anymore. I used to be like super into the whole fitness community, like I used to like follow all the strongmans, all the fucking
oh shit, you were into it. Okay.
Yeah, I used to like love to like study the science. I mean,
so
it was
you're
like something I actually wanted to pursue. No,
or you
I don't
were
even go to the
jacked
gym anymore. Yeah, sure. Yeah, were. Now I just play World of Warcraft all day. But I have actually been getting motivated to like get back to the gym. I mean, I still do like casual stuff, right? Like I still just like go into my basement gym and do pull-ups and hit the bench.
I mean, you'd be surprised. So I also used to like go to the gym a lot, and then I played World of Warcraft all day every day for many years. And then upon going back, you get it back really fast. Like you can get back to the point you were at in like
muscle
no time.
memory, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like so fast. You'll be really disappointed like the first time you go back. Like if you try to bench what you used to bench, you're gonna feel really bad about yourself. But like if you like commit for like a month, you'll be fucking chilling. Like you'll be all the way back.
I think the bigger thing right now for me specifically is my like joints and mobility and flexibility and all that doesn't feel as great. Like that's something that would take
you're old.
a couple of months of ramping.
Dude.
Yeah. You just gotta old. It's just
do stretches, man. You do stretches while you get inside the key and you wait for everybody else to show up. And you just stretch until they're all there. And
or you could do that because you're not streaming. Yeah. Like for me, like imagine like I'm streaming and then I'm just like I like enter a key and I'm like in the dungeon first, then I just get down and start doing yoga. Like that would be insane.
Really, that's good content. People would fucking love that.
That would be insane.
That would go crazy.
Yeah, tier list. Oh yeah, and there's like tier list of different types of fruits or vegetables. Like, there's like tier list for like literally everything. Oh, have you guys ever seen the zoo tier list or whatever?
Oh, Tierzoo.
The guy who like, yeah, the guy who like ranks certain animals and like how they compare, or like how humans compare to certain animals. That's pretty
Dude,
good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch this shit after this though. That
Oh,
sounds really
Tierzoo
fun.
is a S tier YouTube channel.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is,
you should definitely check it
it's
out.
like such easy to watch 5 hours of. You'll love
Tierzoo.
that shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, top video: silverback gorilla versus grizzly
Yeah.
bear.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's so good.
I'm fucking in.
Yep.
Yeah, it's actually a good.
Dude,
concept.
this is weird. I feel like we did our bonus episode in the actual podcast.
I feel like that as well. I don't know
I
what we
feel
want
like
to do
doing a
about.
bonus would be a little bit excessive.
Ooh, do we have a Patreon question?
We do.
We do.
Dude, this is going to
It's
be
one
like a
directed at
3-hour
you.
podcast. I feel like, Frank, we did our job here. And
It's Thanksgiving.
it's Thanksgiving. We're going to
Yeah.
give thanks to ourselves. by-
and it's a special
Thanks to our watchers.
a special
our
thanks
listeners.
to all of our listeners. For this week only, you get extra long content. If you like listening to us for this long, first of all, what the fuck? Second of all, there's a Patreon where you can do that every week.
Yeah.
Because we
Good
usually
fucking
have
point.
Yeah, exactly.
We do this literally, if you're like, wow, this week was great. We do this every week. You just have to be a patron.
Yeah, you just have to pay us money.
Dude, I
And-
feel like they probably clicked off by now. This is such a long one.
Yeah, but anybody who's still here, they're locked in.
They're
Anybody who's-
fucking locked in.
or-
the people who hear it need to hear it.
Or, and tell me in the comments if this is you, you clicked at the end because you wanted to see the full tier list, and you actually haven't watched the whole thing. You just wanted to see what the full tier list was, because every time there's a tier list video, if you look at the little YouTube like chart, there's always a huge spike right at the end where people are just clicking to see what the full list was. Anyways, our Patreon question this week comes from Stud Shaming that says, this question is mostly for Max, but perhaps the two best hosts will also have some insight.
What the fuck?
All right, I'm going
Max-
to escape right back.
What the fuck?
First, congrats on another world first. Absolutely a dominating tier. I wanted to get your thoughts on team evaluation during and after a raid. I'm an engineering manager, and so often during staff evaluations, I struggle to find specific feedback from my team. I have a general sense of who's doing well and who did what, but it's often more opaque than I would like. I know you often have to make difficult decisions about guild rosters between raids, and wanted to ask about that process. Do you take notes during the raid to track specific incidents where people
No.
perform well or poorly? Or is this all done in retrospect? If in retrospect, how do you avoid emotional biases or overly weighting pulls near the final kill?
Mm.
I noticed in your comms, someone might get kindly called out for a wipe, but they respond that they were testing something out, so their actions led to a wipe, but might have helped gain new insights. How is insight and pragmatism evaluated alongside individual skill, i.e. damage? Is this something you've refined over your tenure? Do you have formal evaluation process for your raiders after a raid? Is the evaluation process shared amongst other officers? Thanks for all the great content. As a 35-year-old and soon-to-be father, I like to watch the race like a sport in place of playing WoW myself. Pod speed. First of all, it's so cool. I was watching the race without playing it, or without playing WoW is such a cool thing that people do. I do that for some other games. Like I, watch some RTS without playing, and yeah. Anyways, Max, the big questions for you.
Are you sure that you two superior podcast hosts would not want to give any insight before myself?
No, that's okay. You can take this one first.
Okay.
I do have insight on this. I think
You can
but-
take this one, little buddy.
Yeah, here, I'll you, pal.
Okay, so there's a lot of this that's interesting. So, one thing you mentioned, if in retrospect, how do you avoid emotional biases or overly weighting pulls near the final kill? So, what's an interesting thing in the race is there are probably, I'm just going to make up numbers. If there are exactly 100 people that would be good enough to raid in Liquid, this is a totally made up number, on the final boss of a raid, there would be 20,000 people that would be good enough to raid in Liquid. In this guild, you would not be a sight for sore eyes. You would not stick out on any boss but the last one. You could kill the second to last boss, maybe not Tindril, but like most second to last bosses, you could kill every boss before that, Dathia, Painsmith, all of them. You could kill all those fights, and you'd be good enough to play here. And the last boss, you could not be in the guild, and it would be immediately obvious that that was true. It's just way harder, and it requires a level above. So a lot of times when we're doing evaluations based on players, it is based on the last boss, and it is based on the pulls near the end, even if you're not taking notes, because that actually is kind of what makes you good enough to do this, and what makes us good enough to win.
So just one weird thing about this. Like if the stuff that we did at the beginning was just as important as the end, it would be kind of important to do that. Plus we also do have analysts that kind of like, when we're first of all, you asked if it was just me or officers. It's very much done within the officers. We have meetings about every player, and usually with personal meetings with every player and kind of talking about the tier. But also we go back and like look at logs and like see how they did on every boss. Like, and usually during the tier, that's like kind of my job. Like I kind of remember all that. Like it's really obvious to me when someone's like underperforming on a certain boss, and that'll be something that we bring up later. But some of it is done via note taking, and just like we kind of just remember. Like I don't know. Let's just say like someone was like, we're talking about a player and we just got done killing Ansarek. We'd be like, oh yeah, they did good on Ansarek, but yeah, they really struggled on Kaiveza, and all of us would immediately remember it because we're all very present for all of that. I don't know. It's like we're very involved, and it's not, you usually don't forget. I'm trying to remember other parts of this. Is there something you find refined? Definitely gotten better at it over time.
What do you think about that question about somebody screwing up, or calling a wipe, or being responsible for wipe, but responding and saying they were testing something out? Because I think that's almost always like,
That would be totally
you
fine.
shouldn't do that. It depends on how, but like, I don't know. Like there's a lot of stuff that you shouldn't test until it's already a wipe, and that you can reliably test once it's a wipe.
Part of what makes
is that
someone
true?
good at this is that they're making a million decisions from the beginning to the end of the race, and you hopefully have people in your guild that make good decisions. And a bad decision would be leveraging an entire raid wipe to test something when you can maybe find a smarter way to test that same thing, maybe on a pull that's already going wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And you would usually, if someone's going to do that, they're going to be like, the pull's already kind of going bad, and they'll just be like, I'm just going to test something here. And a lot of times, I think that happens probably throughout the 20 people in the raid, like thousands of times an hour, actually.
Yeah.
And it's just
I was gonna
never
say, actually.
communicated, and you're just, that person's, it's personal problem solving. They're solving things for themselves. And sometimes
Right.
it is for the whole raid, but mostly it's for themselves. That's
I mean,
actually,
that's part of becoming a better player, right?
Yeah.
There-
That's
I
a
would-
great thing to do.
I would say players' skill, what makes someone good enough to do this is their ability to solve problems quickly, and it's not group problems a lot of the time. It's the ability to, if you're a warlock, how can I play warlock the absolute best on this fight? That is an ongoing process that is impossibly difficult and with endless possibilities, and you are trying to do your best at doing that. And the people that are good enough to do this, the people that are in this guild are people that are just literal fucking psycho problem solvers. Like they're insane at that, and that is kind of the thing that you mentioned, like, oh, someone's doing this, that is happening fucking permanently, like all the time.
Yeah, like if you're putting your CDs here instead of here, or like you're changing how you play your window in this specific
Right.
part of
and
the
that doesn't
fight,
go
or,
through
like-
me either. There's a lot of things that I manage in the raid. Like so much of that is just their personal intuition, knowing how to do
Yeah,
that. That's also
and,
why
like,
race
you know-
world first experience is super important too.
It's like the whole when do you play defensive and offensive, or like how much are you greeting? Because like that's pretty much testing, right? It's like, all right, am I gonna try to like fit in this cast during this web blade or whatever, or like am I trying to not sit in bear form or ghost wolf or whatever it may be during this mechanic to like do more damage or whatever? Like all that stuff is testing, right? And I find that to
So-
be like an important player skill.
I have two anecdotes from that. There are times when you're doing a boss and you think you'll kill it really quickly, and you just want to play super, super safe. You would not want to cause wipes by being really greedy.
Right.
And then there are bosses that are maybe in the middle, and bosses that are really hard, where you want to actually play greedy from pull one, because you know you're going to need to do that by the end. So it might be better for initial progression for everyone to play safe for the first 30 pulls so you see as far as possible. But in reality, we've actually done bosses before where we've had our melee play super safe on a really hard melee fight just to see farther. And we did, and we saw the enrage. But it turned out for us to kill that boss, they had to be fucking uptime fiends. And in reality, we wasted time because they had to learn two versions of the fight. They had to learn the very, very safe version, and then we had to go back and, I guess you would consider it regressing. That's not really how progression works, but like we didn't see the same progression because our melee had to start doing something totally fucking different that was way harder, and they had to learn two separate things. And the best thing to do in that scenario in hindsight would have been knowing the damage we needed to do, would have been having them do that from the beginning. That's bad decision making on our part, not making the right decision on that, but like that's just an example of how you have to play that totally differently, and it just depends on the scenario in the fight.
100%.
I'm trying to. I think that's everything they're asking. Yeah. W.
Yeah,
He said
will say
pod
both
speed at the end
for-
too. Love that.
pod speed's a good question. Yeah.
For later cutting edge guilds, or just like guilds that kill it much later,
Mhm.
they generally don't need to worry about damage as much. So in those situations, you definitely do see more of like just play safe and we'll kill the boss.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that you'd want to like test a way to do extra
More damage.
damage that has a high risk of wiping you. Like that is something that I mean,
But still, some
you
people
still
will do
need to
it.
do a little bit of it, but yeah,
There is someone, if you guys raid, there is someone in any one of your guilds, if you're listening to this, that their reason for playing WoW is because they want to do huge fucking damage, and they will always make the decision to do the greedy thing for more damage because that is what they find fun in this game.
yeah,
Right?
and that's at a certain point, like even if your guild doesn't need that, if the person in your guild is good and that's what they find fun, and they're
Yep.
raiding in a guild because it's fun, you don't want to clamp down too hard on it.
Yep, everyone plays this. You have 20 people in your raid, you're going to have a handful of people that all do all kinds of different stuff and care about different things. But I'm actually interested from, like, do you guys do the same thing? Like, how do you evaluate players?
Yeah,
Into
I mean, we
your-
also do talking among all the officers about everybody, and then talking with every single raider, every tier. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't like take notes. I do have it pretty much all in my head, like who did what when and who did well on which
Yeah,
fight.
that's what I found fascinating. He asked
Yeah.
about if we weren't taking notes, and he's like, if you weren't taking notes, aren't going to worry about things at the end. And I didn't really know how to answer that without sounding like an idiot and being like, bro, I don't need to take notes. But like, dude, I
We
remember
take
like
mental notes, right?
Yeah.
we are so I remember fucking everything that happens like
Yeah,
in
me
these
too.
raids. Like even over the course of 2 weeks, all day, every day, if you mentioned even like a hint of something, I would know exactly what you're talking about. Like we are very, very fucking involved in this stuff. It's like super.
I've never been a note taker as well. I think taking notes wouldn't be a bad way to do this for a lot of people, but like I am not a note taker. I am a
Yeah, me neither.
thing rememberer. Like that's in classes I would do worse if I tried to take notes by
Oh.
quite a lot.
100p. Yep.
Yeah.
Same.
It's
Dorki, did
funny
you take
'cause-
notes?
I mean, I take mental notes.
Did you go to school?
Like- Yeah, what do you mean? I fucking graduated with a computer science degree.
I don't know why I said
You
that.
guys good? But
Yeah, a damning indictment of the American education
Speaking-
system is Dorky.
Speaking of computer science degree, I was actually talking to the guy that interviewed you, Max, about
What guy?
the Danish guy. You know what I'm talking about? You made a video about it. I don't remember what the video was exactly.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, there's some random viewer was like, "Hey, I want to interview you," and I was like, "All right," and then I called him and then did it.
Yeah.
and then
so,
he Yeah. Well, you talked to him as well?
yeah, it was just kind of random. I was like playing hardcore with the Echo guys, and then he wanted to do an interview at the time, and we were talking about almost the exact same topic. Actually, we were talking about
Did you
making
talk about it
mistakes.
with him? Like, was it a group talk?
yeah, it was like a group. It was kind of like a podcast almost. It was like an
Alright,
interview.
cool.
Like, he was just like asking. I was like,
Did anyone put it on YouTube?
I don't. Maybe he'll put it on YouTube. I'm not sure. I mean, he's doing this for personal research, right? I believe that's what he said.
Yeah, but you could make some sick content out of it. Was it interesting?
Sort of. I mean, we were just talking about how like the whole rating culture and how there's this whole idea of like people are afraid to make mistakes, even though mistakes are oftentimes good for learning. Because like if you're not willing to make any risks, or like when we're talking about testing, like if you're not willing to test stuff, then you're just gonna be permanently stuck in like in the non-min-maxed way of playing the game, right? And you're bound to make mistakes eventually, because like it's just gonna happen. But if you tested it earlier, then you might
course.
have known that like this was preventable. But basically, like people are afraid to make mistakes because of the whole culture of like blaming and hugging too. When you're in the pug situation, like if like nobody wants to pipe up who fucked up, right? Because like if you fucked up, right, you're getting kicked from the guild, or not guild, but like from the raid, or
That's a bad guild environment.
might
but yeah,
Yeah.
that
like
is
pub
somewhat
environment,
common.
which is,
I
like, very
actually
common.
I don't know if Frank put it on YouTube yet, but I reacted to a like raid leader
video.
classic guy. Yeah, the one that he posted in this Discord. I don't know if you guys ended
Yeah,
up watching
that he
it.
wanted us to react to. Yeah,
Yeah. I just YOLO reacted to that shit, and then
It was good, yeah.
and I made a lot of points that are exactly what you're talking about. Where like that's just pretty much a bad guild environment. Like you don't want people. If people in your guild feel afraid to admit that they messed up, then like you're directly harming the learning process of everyone around you, and it's really, really, really fucking bad.
100%.
And
Yeah,
like
I think
if
it's
you
just hard because that's just
How-
like the culture, right? Like that's just how WoW.
Here's
has
what you need to
been.
do. You just need to have a leader that is vocally critical of themselves and makes it very obvious to everyone that it is okay to say you messed up, so you can quickly identify what went wrong, learn from it, and move on. And if you don't do that, or if your raid leader or guild leader, whoever, chastises people for making mistakes and people are terrified of speaking up, then your guild's just gonna fucking suck. Like that, or it's like a casual guild and no one cares. But like if you care about your guild being good, or even like efficient, or like people not hating their lives there, that's just how any guild that isn't dog shit is run. There's not a single guild that's good where people are terrified of speaking up ever. Like that's just a bad guild thing. I do note in Classic it's very common though. I think this is because this is how guilds were used to run, you know, like the whole Rignaros style, like the fucking screaming and shit, like back in the day. Like I've noticed that Classic guilds operate a lot more like that, especially casual ones, which I kind of find fascinating. Because I think in
Yeah,
retail,
that's how
really...
the pug scene is like too, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's not good, but it's what it is. You can make a guild that addresses problems when they come up, and it's not toxic, and people are not afraid to say they messed up because everyone, including your best player, messes up, and that just needs to be understood. That's a human thing. That happens everywhere, right?
Yep.
Like you can cultivate an environment where it is okay to do that, and I don't think it's very rare. It's certainly not rare amongst top guilds at all. So maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe that is the first step to not being bad. Actually, is doing that. So
I think it's also gotten worse with streaming being part of the equation because, like, you look at Race War First, for example, like especially when I was watching you guys' POV Max, there's just like a bunch of these fucking chatters that are just like they're just like trying to rip it into someone whenever someone fucks up. He's like, oh, like if Fired Up dies, right? They're just gonna like talk mad shit, or like if Coop
dude,
fucks up, or like A bomb limb on the ads,
yeah,
right?
honestly,
Or-
Race World First people, that's also why we don't have Twitch chat open, by the way, because, like, I mean, just imagine if you are, like, raiding in your guild, and you messed up, and you're kind of, like, you know, like, you're like, man, I just let all my friends down. I feel bad. Now imagine if there's 100,000 people watching you, and they're
Yeah.
all calling you
Just
dog
shit
shit.
at
That is,
Yeah.
like, bro...
Yep.
The worst part is the people who've done the race, especially for a long time and used to read chat, you don't even have to see chat. You kind of are imagining it. Like you
Yeah,
mess
you know
up
what's happening.
and it's in your head because you're like, damn, there's definitely 100,000 people calling me dog shit. By the way, 100,000 people that will never be as good at any game as this person is at this game. And they are calling you dog shit. That can get in your head, you know. It's a thing, but that's actually, I think that's something that Race World First people have to just throw away. You think that's a thing in regular guilds? Like someone, even if someone's streaming to 30 viewers, you think that like that
No,
like
but
gets them-
like the idea that like of there being 20 players, like if the raid leader is like being like saying like calling out your fuck up, like maybe not even in like a condescending way, right? Like just like bringing it up in front of 19 other players, it might come off really poorly, and it might feel bad when you're just being called out in front of all these guys. But if it's like a 1v1, it's like, yo, you fucked up on this tonight, maybe fix this up, and it's not as big of a deal. But yeah, definitely like the more eyes there are, the more daunting it can be. And this was actually the last MDI when they lost that what was it called, Grim Battle, with the Shadow Step, right, where Swag Shadow Stepped and just like completely blew him up. And that was like being talked about on competitive Reddit, and there were just like people who were ripping into him. It's like, oh, how do you even make this mistake in a grand finals of MDI, and some people are just like, they just don't get it.
Yeah, of
People
course.
just fucking make mistakes. I mean, like, this happens in
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
of
best
course.
sports in the world.
Nobody is immune to making a mistake from time to time, and it doesn't make you a bad player. There's nobody who doesn't do it.
Like, I mean, if you're watching like a football game, it's Thanksgiving today
Yeah.
in America, and like there was a bunch of football games on, and like, what do you see every time there's a football game? Like, some like Midwestern dad out in the stands, like 10 beers deep, being like, "How the fuck do you drop that pass?" Do you think that guy thinks, if you were to think about that for 2 seconds, like, could he have caught that pass in that scenario? Like, fucking of course not. He would never be anywhere near that field, right? So like
But WoW players are closer, right? Like, you're sitting at a computer playing a video game. The gap between a Twitch chatter and a football viewer it's smaller, right? And it is a little bit smaller. And
I actually-
it feels a lot smaller.
I think it's actually kind of similar, and I think a lot of people delude themselves into thinking
it's
that
still massive for sure, but like, I don't know. I mean, either way, it feels way smaller, right? Like, people.
Yeah, when you
feel
look at an
less-
athlete, you're like, I don't
Yeah.
look like that.
Yeah,
Like, that
exactly.
guy can jump higher and run faster than I can, but as a gamer, someone can jump higher and run
Yeah.
faster than you, theoretically speaking, figuratively speaking, in game. But that doesn't appear the same because your both are sitting at your computer. It's not physical, right? So you, it just appears like that. But the gap is the same. But I don't think a lot of those people think that either. They're just like rooting for a team in the race, and they're
just being dicks.
they're
I don't
just
know.
like sports fans. Like, sports fans just like there'll be a guy. There's like a Brazilian soccer player, like national team player, that got fucking murdered for like playing bad in a game. Maybe it was Venezuelan. I was one of those countries. Like, he was like, he played bad in the World Cup and then he got killed. Like, that's how much people care about that. Like, do those people think they would have done a better job? No, but he didn't do a good enough job. And maybe some of it is that. It's like sports rooting interest. I need this guy to play better. Come on, Fired Up. Come on, Riku. Come on, Atlas. Like, play better. Like, I'm just naming random players. Like, I don't know. Does suck though, bro. Imagine, this is why we can't read Twitch chat. Just think about like a I was about to say a sports player. Any player of any major sport. Now imagine you're in the middle of competing, but at any time you could just look over to another monitor and you could see what all of those people in the stands are saying and thinking about you, and you make a bad mistake. Bro,
Yeah.
that is like advanced mental warfare. Like, you have to have an iron will to survive that. It is fucking brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot if you're a streamer with thick skin develop. Because, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm pretty immune to this type of stuff just because I'm just used to fucking idiots chatting all the time. And I always call these fuckers out, too. It's like, especially when I'm playing my druid, it feels the fucking worst. It's like, I'm playing my druid, and you have to test your limits, right? Like, I can't just be bare forming every fucking mechanic, so there'd be times where I would, like, die to a mechanic that
That's
I
such a good
expect
point.
to be alive.
Mm.
Because, like,
But
like, it's like,
anytime you
alright.
die, it's like, you could have bear formed, right?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
people, like, you just see idiot chatters, they're typing, like, bear form, bear form, or, like, chicken lol, like, stuff like that, right? And I'm like, these guys are so fucking dumb, man. It's like, if there's a mechanic happening, and then, like, I pressed bark skin for it, and it's like, alright, surely this is enough to live it. But then, like, if you die after pressing bark skin, and, like, you didn't bear form it, then you're just gonna have all these people talking shit.
All right, gang.
Bro, it's a
We gotta
3-hour
stop
podcast.
recording. Yeah.
It's a 3-hour pod. Dude, Frank's gonna be so happy.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's gonna
Let's
be
go.
I like how that's the first thing we're thinking about.
Dude,
We're just here to
I
make
hope
Gronk
everything's
happy.
gonna work, by the way. I'm normally like 99% uploaded on this software, and right now I'm at 63.
Ooh.
And it's going up very slow.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for us this week. Podios, I'm going to hit the end recording button and we'll see if it all uploads. Or if not, then you'll never hear this.
Pod speed.
Pod speed.